It made national headlines when it was announced that Ric Flair would be returning to the ring for one last match. And the story that unfolds leading up to that match will be told every Monday this month at 6:05 Eastern. We invite you to come along and witness the Nature Boy's path back to the ring for his last match. The behind-the-scenes discussions, the workouts, the promotion, the ups and downs, the blood, sweat, and tears, which will all culminate on Sunday, July 31st at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium, when Ric Flair will step through those ropes and enter a JCP ring for one last match. Mondays, 6:05 Eastern, RicFlairsLastMatch.com.
Hey everybody, Eric Bischoff here, and have you heard about Strictly Business? Strictly Business is a brand new weekly series exclusively on adfreeshows.com. Join me and my co-host John Alba every Tuesday as we take a deep dive into the business of the professional wrestling business. And this is some straight up business talk here, no fanboy nonsense. We discuss television contracts, advertising, licensing, and of course, the highly debated ratings. So if you want an unfiltered, brutally honest, anti-fanboy understanding of the professional wrestling industry, well, Strictly Business is the series for you. And hey, if Elon Musk likes my tweets, and he did, you're going to love Strictly Business. Sign up now and listen at adfreeshows.com.
Are you feeling stuck making minimum payments on your credit card debt? SaveWithConrad.com can help, and you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Oh, and did I mention no house payments for 2 months? Get rid of your credit card debt and lower your monthly payments right now at SaveWithConrad.com.
Jim Crockett Promotions presents Ric Flair's Last Match, July 31st at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium. StarCast Weekend in Nashville, bringing wrestling companies together for one of the most unique cards ever assembled. Main evented by Ric Flair's Last Match. Tickets are on sale right now at RicFlairsLastMatch.com, and you can catch the show live streaming on pay-per-view and Fight TV for only $34.99. Ric Flair's Last Match. Walk in that aisle one more time for the last time. StarCast is presented in part by ProWrestlingTees.com. T-shirts designed and sold by over 2,500 pro wrestlers. By Lenny Bakken, certified financial planner. And by Powerbomb Pizza. Pizza crafted and sold by pro wrestlers. Powerbomb Pizza, powered by Kitch Data.
We are broadcasting from the Blue Chew Studios. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. Hello and welcome to Grilling JR. This is Paul Bromwell, and I'm joined by the voice of wrestling, my buddy, my friend, the Hall of Famer, Mr. Jim Ross. JR,
a guy you have immense chemistry with, contrary to some naysayers.
We love each other, JR.
They don't have any chemistry. He needs to grill JR. We want red ass JR. Well, maybe you get red ass JR depending on how this show flows. But I always enjoy working with you, Paul, because you know why you're still a great fan and you prepare. And this show here is horrible, but it needs a lot of explanation. It was loaded with talent.
Yeah,
it was loaded with talent. Cowboy had just gotten to town. Things are changing. So we'll have a lot of fun talking about this one.
We are going to have fun, JR. I watched the show today because, I got tapped on the shoulder just a couple hours ago. And that's a whole comedy show in and of itself. But I'm glad to be here with you as always. And I watched the show and I thought, oh, God, JR and I are going to have a fun time with this one 30 years ago. But listen, I got a few things before we get into the show.
I was in my 40s.
You were.
I'm 70 now, which I've talked about. I think maybe I'm just bragging that I lived to be 70. Nobody can take that away from me.
They can't. You were 40 years old, pal.
Yeah, I was young buck.
Yeah,
young bucks, so to speak. But I I had no, I've had no issues with this age thing because it is what it is. The only way you're going to stop it is to die. I prefer not that option.
Nobody
right
wants that, pal. Listen,
We
you
don't
were
need-
wearing your chucks on this event too. You had that bow tie on, and you were looking sharp and sounded good. But before we get in the show, there's a few things I wanted to hit you with because we haven't recorded, and I know Eric was with you last week, and man, you guys got fantastic reviews. So I get to be the guy that follows that fantastic show that you did, and that it is what it is. But I want to ask you something. I've noticed on the last few AEW shows, the Dynamites, they're bringing you out to kick off hour number 2, and then we're getting JR on Rampage. Why don't you fill in the audience what's going on there?
Well, that was a Tony Khan decision. Creatively, I was coming out before the show when I was doing all of Dynamite, and the reception was humbling. Fans are glad to see me, and they expressed themselves. And the reception has been really good. So he thought that the show in the middle of the show, particularly Dynamite, needed a boost. So JR became the booster. So I come out in the middle of the show, still going to call the main event or main events, as it may work out. And then we all take a bathroom break for the crew and so forth. Then we go right into taping Rampage. Of course, Rampage airs on Friday nights on TNT, and as we know, Dynamite's a TBS show. It airs at 8 o'clock Eastern time, prime time, live. I love that. So it's only an hour. So it's kind of like doing old school hour wrestling shows.
Yeah.
Which is what it is. So I like that deal. I didn't have any issues with it at all. I said, no, I'm a Mariano Rivera. I'm going in for long relief.
There you go.
And we're going to get some results for you. So that's the deal there. Just keeping me fresh and quote unquote special, and trying to give trying to give Rampage a little boost, commentary wise, selling wise. So we need to obviously get the ratings up, which I think we are, and so that's the reason for that. And no problem with me whatsoever. It gets a little bit. I get more exposure now than I did before because I wasn't on Rampage.
No. And so we get you twice now during our week instead of just once a week. And like you said, you get that jolt midway through Dynamite with that big JR pop. And that's what it's been, dude. And so loving seeing you on the TV twice a week. So that's been pretty cool. So thanks for sharing that. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we jump into this amazing star-studded event of WCW 92, StarCast, Ric Flair's last match, man. And I know, we were just talking about that as well before we jumped on here to record. And man, what a big event that's built up to be.
Oh, it's awesome. I miss Conrad podcasting with me, and I'm sure the other hosts do as well, or the other talents. But he's tied up. I'm doing all this organization and booking these talents, booking these matches, dealing with the talents. How much am I going to make? Am I going to go over? Do I get music? Do I get pyro? There are all these questions. I told Conrad, I said, man, you're just getting started. You're going to be they're all going to flock to you for answers. And the answers are going to need to be given right then and truthfully. Not that Conrad would misrepresent the truth. He would not. But I said, you got to be prepared to address all these issues. And so travel has been a problem for me, Paul. It's just this cancer radiation wound. When anybody that flies understands this, you swell your feet, your lower appendages swell on the airplane. And when you're like me living in Jacksonville or Norman, there's always a connecting flight, or I'll say always, about 90% of the time. So you're on that pressurized cabin longer. My wound is healing, but it's not healed enough to take the pain away or make it comfortable to do anything. Well, hell, walking hurts me. Sitting too long with my feet down below my waist hurts me. So that was the main thing. That's why I'm not going to be at StarCast, is simply because of travel issues. I wish I was healthier. I'm saving my travel anxiety and pain to where I'm getting paid, which is, I think anybody listening would understand that. But I'm fully supportive of Conrad's event. I think StarCast is going to be something people are going to talk about for a long time. It's a great way to renew friendships with some of your favorites who are there to meet you and to take care of you. Conrad will make sure that happens. So I'm very pleased with how that's all working out, and I just wish I could be there. I know Rick wanted me to call his last match, but he'll have David and Tony, and they'll do a great job. I wish I was going to be sitting there with them, but it's not the cards this time. So we'll see. I wish it was, but I'm honored to be considered for that role. I have a lot of respect for Nate. Obviously, I love him, and I hope the thing turns out great. I'm going to do that London booking thing. I'm going to bet on Flair.
There you go.
You think Flair's going to lose?
I know,
his
right?
Retirement match? I don't. I may put a couple of bucks on that one. So, but anyway, I'm fully supportive of what Conrad's doing. It's a massive, massive undertaking, moving a lot of parts. I know that we have a great team there. Conrad's team is there, and they'll do wonderful support. And I think it'll be a really fun event, low stress, fan friendly, without a doubt. And I can't wait to see how it all comes out. Here's the good thing about it is I can watch it I can sit here in Jacksonville and watch it on the Fight app. That's right. Which I do all the time. I like the Fight app. I help usher the Fight app into America. I was on their payroll for a year. And so I'm a big believer in that source. It's a great way to watch wrestling that you can't get normally on normal services, screening services. So that's where I'll watch the StarCast Fight app. And I'm sure I encourage everybody that if you can't go to Nashville, here's your ticket. You got to leave your living room. So this is a suggestion, but that's kind of how I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to watch it all. I think it's great.
Now, that's awesome. Go to starcastwithjr.com, and that's where you can pick what package you want to watch on Fight TV. JR, before we get into it this week, one more thing I wanted to bring up, because I think your fans will be interested in this. And you were telling me a little bit this afternoon when we talked on the phone, and then again today, about an exciting project around Mildred Burke.
Yeah.
Can you share about that with a little bit?
Yeah, as we record this, I had lunch with the writer, director, head honcho of the whole project, Ash Avildsen. And I've done little projects here, there, and yon for Ash. And so he came to town with a script for the movie's called Millie, Millie. And of course, folks that don't know, she's a fascinating read if you go online and Google Mildred Burke. She's 5 feet tall, big triceps, big biceps. She's special. And she was working, she's a big wrestling fan and had a little son. And she was waiting tables in her mother's little restaurant, cafe, probably more specifically in Kansas City, I believe it was. So she is the centerpiece of the film, and her love of wrestling and how she got into wrestling. When she got into wrestling in the 30s, Paul, a lot of states would not sanction women's matches. So she had to wrestle men a lot. And of course, they were going to take their liberties and, be the boys, especially if they had to do a favor, put her over. So Millie's going to be out one of these days. But the process has moved along positively in leaps and bounds. I'm fascinated by the script. Just reminds me so much of my upbringing, because the wrestling business didn't change forever. The 30s, the 40s, the 50s, it all stayed the same. You got a Tony Soprano guy that's the booker, and he's going to run it, period. And I think that's good. So Millie is a work in progress, no date for release or something like that. And we might even tape the show in Jacksonville, in Savannah, for exteriors, older stuff, things of that nature. So going to Savannah was just a Luck this week, and Ash was there, and like I said, we met on Monday and talked on Sunday, and so we're really getting waist deep in it. So it's a project I have is close to my heart. Part of the movie is going to be dedicated to Jan, which I always think is great. So we're another project, but it's a wrestling project, one that I'm very excited about and very proud of. So I think the fans will love it. I really do. And you'll see my excitement about it more if you Google Mildred Burke and read about her career, how a single mom, it was an abusive relationship with the most powerful man in her business, Billy Wolf, who abused her. He was an adulterer. He was a wife beater. And she stayed with as long as she could. And then she ran opposition to him. And that was culminated in our movie with a big shoot fight she had with June Byers. It was a shoot. And June was much bigger, much stronger, much more muscular. And they had a shoot fight because nobody could decide on the finish. Her ex-husband at the time, Billy Wolf, wanted his girl to go over, not his ex. It's drama, bullshit. But it's a fascinating story about that. And that culminated in a real shoot fight for the title. And they beat the hell out of each other. But little Mildred survived and persevered. And so this book is the book Queen of the Ring was written by a guy named Jeff Leen, Leen. For years, Jeff was one of the major writers at the Washington Post. So he did great research. He loved the genre. So Jeff Leen wrote this book called Queen of the Ring, which I read, was fascinated by it. And then one night in LA, I'm having cocktails with Ash, and he's talking about projects. He wanted to do a wrestling movie, and he had this idea and everything. And I just said, well, look, you might be recreating the wheel and not even know it. What I would do if I were you is I would read Queen of the Ring. This is a movie. It's a great story. People can identify with the underdog. They can identify with an abused woman. They can identify with a persevering and getting over and out of that stuff and having a successful, happy life. So that's kind of where we are with Millie. So I'm having fun with that. And that's going to be a nice project. That'll be my reading material next couple of weeks going to work. So all good, man. I love wrestling. I really do. I still love it.
I know you do. It sounds exciting, and I know a lot of wrestling fans are looking forward to it. When you and I talked today on the phone, I could hear the passion coming through your voice, JR. We must have talked about 15 minutes, and he was there with you. And I want to note, I don't know if you know this or not, but Billy Corgan actually he acquired in the past that actual title belt that was held by Mildred Burke, and he celebrates her legacy. They call the NWA Women's Championship belt, they call it the Burke. So in honor of her. So I think that's very cool. Yeah.
It's great we don't need to forget our heroes.
Yes.
We don't need to forget those that came before the current generation and discount their contributions. It might not be as fun to talk about the dirt. My God, I need more dirt. I need red ass JR. It's got a great ass. But we need to remember these people. It's like studying history and those that signed the Declaration of Independence, even that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We can't forget who led us here.
Pioneers. Yeah.
Yeah. And they led us here and they got us here. And where we are may not be exactly how we want to be, but it is what it is. That's right. And all these ladies, these top females that are making great money now, which I'm very happy for, they wouldn't be in this position had it been for Mildred Burke. Mildred Burke was headlining cards. We have a scene in this movie where she was the main event, and the semi-main was her husband at the time, Billy Wolf, who Mae Young had nothing good to say about, in my experiences with Mae. And we talked about that today. I'm not big on this wife beating shit. Man, a man hitting a woman, I don't give a shit. You could explain, well, she did, and see, she had a frying pan, and I could tell she'd been drinking. It don't matter, pal. It don't matter. You never strike a woman. Keep your dignity and your character in place, and don't strike a woman. And ever, my mother would come down from heaven and kick my ass if that was an occurrence.
Yeah.
And I'm just not going to be a party to that deal. But at the end of the day, we're going to expose it in this movie. But the movie has a happy ending, if you know what I'm saying.
Great. Yeah.
Without giving it away. So I'm really excited about it. I think wrestling fans will be excited about it. It's going to be very authentic. We're taking some poetic license. We created a fight in the movie with Mae Young involved, because I had to explain to Ash, Mae Young was the police person. She was a policeman for the women's territory. So when Billy Wolf had all of his troop out there before Moolah, this is before Moolah. He booked Moolah. He used Moolah as a talent. Then all of a sudden he's got this territory, or this troop of females, and they're traveling. They had no air flights. They're traveling by car. They're dressing in closets, because I've seen it. And when the women were booked in a territory, that meant that some of the guys that are on the territory regularly had got time off. And when they got time off, guess what? They didn't get paid. So now you got these women trying to coexist with these guys who are either hitting on them or they're pissed because their buddy's off this week. And those broads are here. The broads are coming in. I don't know why we booked the broads. Well, because that's what the booker wanted. We hope they help us sell tickets. Maybe you're not selling enough tickets. Maybe. So anyway, I go on and on about this movie and what it means to me. I think it's just important. And right now in the day and time we're living in, where women are given long overdue credit for headlining being main events. Who would ever thought that females would headline WrestleMania?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have. A booker, I guarantee you, Vince Sr. would not have thought about it. He wouldn't have gone for it. It's a man's deal. So we're going to show you that it didn't have to be.
It
could be successable without it. And now it's come to life because of what I said.
It's
WrestleMania main events and so forth. Right. Yes, it's a good deal. So I'll keep everybody posted on it.
Keep us up to date. Yeah.
It's a process, man. You hear that and what does that mean? Well, that means we're getting into the slow part of it. And we already have several studios interested, simply because it's a story about a undersized female who fought her way out of an abusive relationship to become a global star. It's pretty good stuff. So I used to tell I'm pumped about it. And it's a lot more exciting than this goddamn show we're going to talk about.
But we're going to talk about it anyway, JR.
Yeah, and it's going to be good, bro.
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to have fun with it. So let's do it. Let's jump into it, because I know we have some folks chomping at the bit to hear what you have to say. It's WCW, we said, 92, 30 years ago. We covered Beach Blast, I guess, a few weeks ago. And we're in the middle of the tag team tournament for the NWA World Tag Titles. This is also, JR, the birth of the Bill Watts era. And unfortunately for Bill, he's coming in at a time where ratings for pro wrestling just were not where we wish they'd be. It was
but I gotta tell you,
yeah.
If you're a booker and you're going to a territory that's dead, you got nowhere to go but up.
That's a good point.
And I have many conversations with Bill when Jan was off the road as a flight attendant. He'd come over and she cooked dinner. He loved that, obviously, and because she was a magnificent cook. She like Italiana, and I do. And I loved her so much. Now I want to cry. No, I'm not. I got to stop this shit. But that was part of the process.
Yeah.
He said, "Kid, we got nowhere to." I was still a kid at that time. Hey, kid, we got nowhere to go but up.
There you go.
We're getting it straightened out, and it'll be fine. So he was always optimistic that he could turn it around. But he knew that he finally realized that to be successful there, he's going to change some of his approaches. This is a different generation. That's what I tried to explain to him. The generation that we're dealing with now have to be communicated differently than how you communicated with Murdoch and Dick Slater and all those dudes.
Yeah, right.
They were old school, hard nosed.
Yeah.
And cowboy, any great salesman has to understand how to reach his audience.
You know your audience. You got it.
Right. And have product knowledge. Well, we knew Cowboy had product knowledge, even though some of it was dated. But we also knew he overall knew the wrestling business as well as anybody.
And it just wasn't a WCW thing either, JR. WWF was having their all-time lowest ratings. You had Primetime All-American. They're hitting for their lowest ratings in history. You had WCW Saturday Night Main Event and Power Hour lowest. So you're right. Watts is coming in now with an opportunity to try to figure out how to turn this around.
Yeah.
But also around this time, I want to mention real quick before we jump into more WCW news, you were talking about legends and honoring our past pioneers. Right around this time period in 92, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers passed away on June 26. Can you put into words what Rogers meant to professional wrestling?
Well, he was Ric Flair before Ric Flair. Robes, the tan, the hair, body type. Rick's about 6 feet. And Buddy was close. Always great shape, looked wonderful. He was a high spot guy. And he was, I believe, based on my chats with the old timers that were active in that era, he was the first guy to do multi-move high spots, leapfrog, drop down, arm drag, leapfrog, multiple spots. That was Buddy. I met Buddy several times, always a kick. He never got out of character. I remember meeting him in Atlanta when Jim Herd was there, and we brought in a lot of the former NWA champions for a dinner and to acknowledge them. It's like Roman Reigns here. Acknowledge me. And so we acknowledged them. And at the coming into the restaurant, we had a private room, and I shook his hand and said, "Mr. Rogers, I'm so happy to meet you first time." I was always happy to see him, but I met him for the first time. And he said, I said, "Mr. Rogers," he said, "just call me Budrow."
Budrow.
Budrow. Okay, Budrow. And he said, "Because I know it's always a pleasure to meet the Nature Boy." And then it's just funny how, playing it forward, there's another Nature Boy that's on the scene that's doing pretty good work. So that was the first time to meet Buddy. Buddy was never, like I said, never out of character. He looked good, while the other guys were dressed more business casual. Buddy had a coat and tie on. Who else has a coat and tie on more often than not? The Nate. Yeah,
that's right. So
it was a fun thing to get to meet him. I'm glad that I'm in the business when I am, and I'm glad that I got to meet a lot of those guys.
That's right.
You got Kaninsky and O'Connor and all those guys I got to know. It was awesome. For a fan who I'd read about these guys in the after mags, as they say, since I was little. And I was little at some point. I was younger at some point.
Younger, there you go.
And so anyway, meeting Buddy Rogers was cool. And he was a cool dude. He oozed charisma. But a guy told me, and it might have been Thez. That's another one I could name drop that I know. I'm going to be up in Lou's favorite town in Waterloo soon.
There you go. Perfect timing.
Yeah, and that's going to be fun. At the Lou Thez George Tregus celebration, which is going to be, I think it's the 22nd and 23rd of July.
It is.
In Waterloo. So that's the old deal is that you can't get there from here. You can if you try hard enough. So I'm going to be going to Waterloo, and it's one of the coolest events of the year. Seriously. I'm not going because I'm getting a payday. I'm going because of my dedication and my service to the wrestling business and contributing to that. So you can go online and get all the information. They got meet and greets, and they got seminars, and they got autograph sessions. They got live wrestling, all these things. And I always enjoy the live wrestling because you never know who you're going to see. You may see somebody that's young and that can deliver, So I'm going to be doing that on the 22nd, 23rd, and go to Waterloo, Iowa, which is the hometown of Dan Gable. I always kid him. I said, "You're the second toughest Dan in wrestling." Hodge.
Danny Hodge. There you go.
Yeah, he don't argue.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I talked to Thes one time about Hodge and all the shooters trying to hook him, as he would say. And I said, so he goes over this list of these guys who are dangerous or careless or just mean. And he talked about how he always went to the one hold, the double wrist lock. He gets you in a double wrist lock, the Kimura, which is bullshit, the double wrist lock. What's the goddamn drop kick now? The Nagasaki? Everything doesn't have to have a Japanese name to be authentic, man.
I love it. Go on, come on. Let's get some red ass in here.
Well, you're getting a little, and so that's kind of where we were on that deal, man. I just I don't know where I was. I was
You're talking about Dan and
oh yeah. So anyway, I'm talking to Thez, and I say he goes this long list, and I said, Lou, what about Hodge? He said, oh wait, different deal. I said, what are you saying? He said, I'm saying that I didn't want any part of his ass. He's the toughest guy. He could hook you. He could beat you. He could knock you out. He was the Golden Gloves boxing champion in the United States. Hodge was. So, and he was my buddy. He was my mentor. He was the guy, my guardian angel. I had one or two, we'll talk about someday, one or two little incidents with bully wrestlers when I was refereeing. They saw Hodge and Akbar, who were tag team partners, Skandar Akbar. And they were tag team champs and all that, it's a babyface team. And they saw I was being abused. I mean, I'm abused like bloody nose, busted lip, blood coming out your ear. Yeah, and you're making $40 fucking.
Oh my God, JR.
Yeah, so, and you don't say nothing to Cowboy. Tough it up. Suck it up. Move on. And that's what I did. But then Hodge and Akbar had a little chat with Bob Sweet Hands, who this guy was. Horrible human being, but a pretty good worker. Good heel. A bully thick. Good psychologist, but just a first-class jerk. And I think they had a little Hodge had a little conversation with it. And then they had a match. And that was where my character they found out my character wasn't to be beat on. Because he's Hodge's boy.
There you go.
So that, hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that either, man. To have the toughest man in the wrestling business. Gerald Briscoe and I get in the greatest arguments about how would Hodge do against Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. And I have my story, and I'm sticking to it. And of course, they have their story. But Briscoe was there when Hodge was in his peak, so he has more my lean than anything else. And he and I agree, and most old veterans agree, Hodge was untouchable. So, anyway,
it just goes to show. Go ahead, JR. I was going to say, it just goes to show too that you said that you grew up you were in the business at like just the right era, but you really are, because you got to meet so many legends and interact with so many legends. And here you are still 70 years old interacting with guys we're still cheering for to this day. So you really have had a fortunate time here in the business. So let's get back to what we're doing here. And this is that old card here at the Bash. The Beach Blast, just so that you guys understand this, the buy rate for Beach Blast came in at a 0.4, which is the all-time low for WCW. JR, can you speak to this? Do you remember this? Do you remember what was like people's buying?
Paul, basically is we were disappointed. We were very frustrated. And we knew we had a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Again, that old theory of nowhere to go but up. And that's kind of what we laid our bet our cards on. So we said we're going to get better. Just give us time to get somebody over. It's a classic example. This whole show that we're talking about has some great talent on it, who became huge stars after that, and some were huge stars before that. But when Cowboy got there, nobody was over. It had been roughshod and mismanaged, things of that nature. Nobody was over. And when nobody's over, that means nobody gives a shit. They don't care. So they went to the wrestling that night just simply because it was on. It was in town or whatever. It was on But the pay-per-view died a natural death. And again, we're just those of us that paid attention to those numbers. We're frustrated and disappointed as to how low they were. But us had been around a while, knew that if we just steered the course and saddle the right talent up and ride them to the finish line, that at some point in time, we're going to be okay.
Absolutely. You're going to hear as we go through the card a little bit later on, WWE Hall of Fame names left and right that were on the roster at this point. But I want to share with you something, JR, here from The Observer. This gives a little bit of background for our audience on kind of what was going on the business side as well. This is from Dave here. He says, in an attempt to push Atlanta's Omni as the new Madison Square Garden of wrestling, WCW had 2 title changes at the July 5th house show, with Brad Armstrong beating Scotty Flamingo, who many know as Raven, to win the light heavyweight title. And then Terry Gordy and Steve Williams beat the Steiner brothers to capture the WCW tag team titles. Not to be confused with the NWA tag titles, which we're going to discuss here today. Both matches, along with a few others, were filmed with a single camera setup and will probably air as soon as Saturday on TBS. The move to push the Omni shows was exemplified on the TBS shows this past weekend, since both national shows heavily pushed the Sunday night card at the Omni with all angles and commentary designed to push those matches at the expense of no hype, no angles, and virtually no commentary devoted to the pay-per-view show on July 12th. Looking at things from the short term, this was the ultimate penny-wise, dollar-foolish decision. Only a tiny percentage of the audience watching nationally on TBS lived within a 1-hour drive of the Omni and could even attend the show, whereas roughly 30% of those watching those shows have pay-per-view capability and could, if they wanted to, order the bash.
That's a key thing. If they wanted to, if somebody's over, if there's an attraction or a match that I cannot miss, I'm in. We thought, well, that'll be our salvation because we knew the advanced ticket sales are not good. So we had to hang our hat. I had to hang my hat. We had to hang our hat. Period on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And as we said, 0.4, there was no money there. They lost their ass big time.
Jar, your overall opinion on non-televised title changes at this time? Do you think it helped the house show business? Do you think it really did it matter? I mean, did it obviously hurt the pay-per-view business?
Well, I think that if you can plant the seed that you don't want to miss any event. If the show's coming, WCW is live and coming to your town, you never know what's going to happen. That was the theory behind the whole thing. Now it's a whole different ballgame. AEW, we don't even do house shows. Our guys work a travel day and a production day. So they got one of the best schedules in the history of pro wrestling and making good money in AEW. And their longevity is going to increase. I think we'll see. I think that's what's always going to be great for us as far as recruiting talent is the fact that we've got a schedule that's family-friendly schedule for the talent. First time ever. And people don't understand that. That maybe the younger audience that's listening now, they might not understand that from the standpoint of children, young adult, young married, things of that nature. It's just you got to be fan friendly, and so I think we were fan friendly in that respect, or we are now for sure. But I don't know that. I think that theory had probably died on the vine.
Yeah,
have title changes at house shows to encourage those that didn't go that maybe you ought to check out the house shows when it's in your area. That's the reason behind it. But I think that ship had sailed.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Eric Bischoff's always said WCW, became, when it did well, it was a television entity. That's what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
He's right.
So another big nugget here for historical purposes, the WCW United States Tag Team titles. I'm sure you remember those, the red strap belts. The Barbarian and Dick Slater had beaten the Freebirds for those belts, JR, but this is around the time those belts disappeared. So just too many tag team titles, oversaturation here?
Yeah, and too many titles in general.
Yeah.
How do you focus on 4, 5? It's like Dusty inventing the Western States Heritage Championship that he gave to his buddy Barry Windham.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that Barry wasn't a great worker. Barry is a great worker, not just good, great worker. But it just created another title. And to me, that, what's the word I'm looking for? It dilutes the championship picture, dilutes it. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in fewer titles. We have this, and now in AEW, we have 2 major titles. Well, we had 3. There's the one that Pac won that made the Atlantic Championship.
The All Atlantic.
Yeah. I didn't understand that, but it doesn't matter what I understand. I'm not against it, but it just, did we need it? I don't know that we needed it, but I also don't know how big of an asset it's going to be internationally for us. And I know that we're going to go to places like Pac's defending that title now in the UK.
Yeah, I heard that there was going to be more international matches with that belt.
Yeah, there are.
Okay.
And it leads into AEW having matches abroad.
Yeah.
I get it all the time. When are you guys coming to England? When are you going to do a pay-per-view? When are you going to do this? Well, when we come to England, you can bet your ass it's going to be big. Tony's got great business. Tony Khan's got great business contacts there. Shivani might too. I don't know. No, I'm kidding. But
he'll be over there selling his comic book in no time.
Yeah, hell yeah. Why not? Yeah. And so Tony Khan has a soccer team.
Yeah.
Fulham. They've been around forever and they're good. So he's got all kinds of sports media contacts, things of that nature. So we're going to be in England. I just don't have a date. That might not hurt. That might hurt your feelings out there, folks in the UK. I don't know the answer.
That's the goal.
I can give you a date and bullshit my way through it. But the key thing is AEW is definitely coming to the UK.
Yeah.
And it will be in the next calendar year. So I know that for a fact. Yeah. So I don't know the dates, but we're excited. All of us are excited about that because we get great television ratings in the UK. So why not play off that?
Yep. Well, listen, JR, there's a lot of young talent. Speaking of talented roster, talented wrestlers, talented individuals, listen to some of this. You have Steve Austin defeating Brian Pillman to retain his TV title. You have Ricky Steamboat and Barry Windham defeating Stone Cold. I'll call him Stone Cold. You have him defeating Austin and Cactus Jack in a tag match on Worldwide. Lots of talent. Do you think you had something to do with the talent at this point or what, JR?
A little. I can make recommendations. Eventually, as my role morphed in WWE, I got to the point where Vince allowed me to sign people. Sight unseen for him. He had no clue who John Cena was. When I told him what I was going to pay Brock Lesnar, he looked at me like I was insane. And he was pissed. Because I think my first offer to Lesnar that I signed him for was $250K. And I remember I think Rock got $1 million, but they're on this deal where you get paid by your performance or on your performance. And much sooner than later, those guys are blowing those numbers away. Same story when I hired Chris Jericho. I paid him less in WCW to enter than he earned exiting WCW. Does that make any sense to you? And I signed him for less money.
You signed him for less for WWE than he was making for WCW when he left.
Yep,
gotcha.
I did. And because I promised him and I told him, if you're as good as you think you are, and you're as good as I think you are, you're going to do all right. So he was soon making 7 figures, and he made it every year since. He did great. And Chris is a gem, and I'm so happy about his success. The Fozzy album is great. Jericho could have all this heat in the world, and when they played Judas,
it don't matter. I know.
It's like they're seeing the second coming of the good Lord. It's amazing.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny how AEW's music's over.
It is.
Isn't that crazy? But anyway,
I love the fact that he licenses it. He spends the money to license music.
He spends the money to license good music.
Yeah.
And not that Jim Johnson's music wasn't good.
Yeah.
But some of these hits that we get,
recognizable.
Wild Thing.
Yeah.
Darby's music, Orange Cassidy's music.
Cult of Personality, CM Punk.
Oh yeah, there's another one.
Yeah.
That kind of started it all.
That's right.
So interesting scenario there, Paul, to say the least. It's another facet of where the business has grown and how these external things like music and pyro and lighting and things make a difference.
Well, JR, I want to pause right here because this episode of Grilling JR is presented by Zyn Nicotine Pouches, the simpler way to experience nicotine satisfaction and enjoy lasting change on your terms. Zyn Nicotine Pouches are a fresher, simpler way to enjoy nicotine that have helped millions of people achieve lasting change by offering a smoke-free and spit-free satisfaction. JR, I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life where I needed to make a change. And I knew I needed to make a change, but I just wasn't ready yet.
Well, I can tell you, Paul, I share a lot of smokers and dippers. How nasty is that shit? Out there can relate to what you just said. Zyn understands that there isn't one right time to quit smoking or to reduce your smoking or whatever. I smoke, and I'm not proud of it. I'm not bragging about it. I'm not patting myself on the back because of it. But it's a habit that I need to address and that I am addressing. And even though I'll probably light up here in a little while, this is a great product. It helps you wean off what you're doing, and it works. A lot of guys I know that are using this product, and there's a lot of them, really brag on how effective it is. So it's something to think about, folks. If you're a smoker or a dipper, here's an alternative for you that will help you. It's better for you. And so if it still gives the same effect that you would normally get from dipping, then why wouldn't you try it? I mean, why not try it?
That's right. So whenever you feel like you're ready to take that first step toward change, Zyn will be there for you too. With the right strength, the right flavor at the right time, as JR said. If you're thinking about making a change and want to learn more today, check out Zyn Nicotine Pouches at Zyn, that's ZYN.com.
And if you're thinking about making a change and want to learn more today about this process, just check out Zyn Nicotine Pouches at Zyn.com. That's ZYN.com.
Now, warning, this product contains nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. So, JR, getting back into it, on various Saturday nights, you're joined by Ron Simmons. That's right, Mr. Florida State, and then Bill Watts. What did you think of working alongside both these guys at this time?
Well, I've worked alongside Cowboy since day one. You know, other than Leroy McGurk, Cowboy is my first regular broadcast partner. So that was nothing new. The reason Ron was out there, quite frankly, was just to get him more exposure. Knowing Cowboy had a plan for him. And that's what we did. We got Ron more exposure. We wanted people to get to know Ron. He's this jacked up, great former Florida State football player, highly acclaimed. But who is he? And we thought maybe by putting him on commentary with me that I would protect him, and I did, and that he would people would get to know him better because we had a destination for him that was big.
Well, as we mentioned, the Great American Bash Tour, it's not really lighting the world on fire. Macon, Georgia draws 1,250. Baltimore Arena, which, by the way, JR, you know, former hotbed for WCW, they only draw 2,500 at this time. The Omni show we mentioned drew 2,500.
Wow.
The Scope in Norfolk, as they say, draws 1,900. Was the company better off, do you think, just not running these shows at this point?
Yeah, but the bean counters wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
There's a discrepancy there in philosophy. I think it was just a matter of trying to create some cash flow, even though it wasn't enough. But also, you got to remember, you got to keep your talent working. You got horses. Horses got to run. You got to get them out there. And I think that's what I would say on that deal. You want to keep your talent sharp, and hopefully some of their in-ring stuff will improve. So it was a strange time in that regard. It really was. Those houses were very disappointing. And you can only imagine how they were to talents, because they're wrestling in front of a bunch of empty seats.
Yeah, that's got to be a little depressing. It isn't encouraging, that's for sure. And you were just talking about it a little bit. There's been a lot of talk lately. There's a lot of injuries in AEW. There's some in WWE right now. Obviously, we know what happened with Cody, and I know we don't talk a lot about current stuff, but there's a thought process that with only working once or twice a week, and at most times, most 3 times a week with a pay-per-view and 2 TV shows, that it's worse for the wrestlers compared to working 4 to 5 times a week like it was in the past. I mean, where's the balance, JR? What do you think?
It's hard to find, Paul.
Yeah.
There's no magic number.
Yeah.
There's no magic number. You got to have good management of your talent, the coaches, road agents, producers, whatever you want to call them. They all do the same gig. They all do the same thing. It's got to go by talents. We have some talents that take way too many chances and way too many bumps in AEW than they need to be taking, in my opinion. I love their fearlessness. It's like the shit Darby Allin does. It's amazing. I saw a thing on, if anybody follows Darby on Twitter, where he did this big ramp thing, and he's on a tricycle, and he went down a ramp, boom, and then did a 360 and landed. And I responded to it. I said, I'm just really happy you're wearing a helmet, because Jesus Christ, there's no margin for error.
I know, man.
And the things he's done in the ring are all his ideas. They're all his. It's like he comes to work and they give him a script. Here's what we'd like to do today, Darby. We need a spot, and he'll come up with a spot. But that's just him. I love his attitude, but I think sometimes he needs to rein it back in, and we don't need as much of that flying circus as we are getting. I love that kid. He's a big time human. He's a big time player, but he tries to do too much, all in the name of the fans, and just doing good work.
Yeah.
So I thought there's a formula there, but the little bastard's so durable. I said the other day something about it's wrestling him's like wrestling a slinky. God, he's limber and he's mobile and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so a guy like him, whose body is used to it and his mindset is used to what he's doing, and he likes doing it, he's an exception to the rule in a lot of ways. Still, I will tell you, he does too much, all in the name of the fans, the AEW fans, and getting the match over. That's always Darby's goal. So there's a fine line there. And I was talking to somebody about this. I said, I don't understand. I can't get through to these guys, but they got to back it off, slow it down. And a veteran wrestler said, well, these guys are bred to do this. This is what they do. And they're going to say to you, JR, I don't feel like I'm earning my money if I'm not doing all my stuff. Okay, let's do part of your stuff. Let's work it in more strategically. Let's don't stop doing your stuff. Let's do it a little bit less so you have less margin for error. And that's what you try to teach them. But these young guys like we got, and then you got the older guys coming in who don't want to be left behind.
Yeah.
So now they're doing crazy shit,
I saw Ricky Morton slinging a light tube the other day on
Really?
Instagram. Like, what are you doing, Ricky? No, not you too.
Guys see music that's selling, and people are clapping their hands to it and stomping their feet. They think this is what I got to sing. This is the music. This is the beat I need to find.
Well, JR, here we are. We're in the early 90s, and I got to talk about it because a year prior to this 92 show, it's the Bash, and that was supposed to feature Flair taking on Luger, but it's the infamous show right after Hurd had fired Flair. In your mind, was this the beginning of the end for the company, or was just, and I don't want to say beginning of the end, but
yeah,
it was going to take a while to rebound from that?
Yeah, you lose your centerpiece. You lose the greatest star you ever had. And who in the hell else is bigger than H?
Yeah.
He's a guy.
He's still doing it.
Yeah. I heard he's going to have a final match in Nashville.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's losing him was a huge blow. And it was a blow in the locker room that people don't talk about it enough. He was a leader of the locker room. He wasn't the leader because he had the spot. When you have the spot, there's no way you're going to get 100% unity, because the guys that want your job are happy you're leaving. are happy you're not there for whatever reason. So yeah, Nature's departure, and it had been ongoing for so long.
Yeah.
He's in, he's out. Contract, the deposit on the belt, all this shit was just hard to deal with.
You can't help as we just sit back and we do armchair booking though now, looking backwards, but to think a guy like Nature Boy mixed in with the talent that you had, the Austins, the Stings, the Steamboats, Dustin Rhodes. I mean, man, what could have been, but it is what it is.
And he had Cowboy.
And Cowboy, yeah.
Cowboy putting that ensemble together was going to make great music, but you just lost your lead singer.
Yeah.
Don Henley's no longer with the Eagles.
That's right.
It don't sound right. It don't feel right. And anybody that thinks that's wrong is crazy, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Gonna make
so it just doesn't jive. But we missed him, obviously.
Big time. Well, JR, we're at the show, and right off the bat, you can see the difference in the product. There's no ramp, there's no pyro, there's no entrance set. In your mind, and do you remember, was this more cost cutting, or was it attempt to bring a bare bones type production?
Cost cutting.
Okay.
Cost cutting. There was no tangible reason to eliminate pyro other than every time you pop one of those firecrackers, it costs you several $100s. And I think Cowboy was looking at ways to cut costs, which is his directive from his bosses. We need to get a hold of our bottom line. Let's reduce some overhead. And one way we can do it is this. And it made the show look and feel different without a doubt. But the reason was cost cutting.
Which would make total sense, especially after reading some of those house show numbers, you know?
You reckon?
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense. So from the Observer, the Great American Bash took place on July 12th at the Albany, Georgia Civic Center before a packed house of nearly 8,000 fans, roughly 4,000 paid with a gate of more than $45,000. Very preliminary estimates are the show did, among the few systems we've gotten reports from, approximately the same to notable decreases on pay-per-view compared with Beach Blast, or probably a 0.3 to a 0.4 buy rate. Given that this show, aside from Sting versus Vader, had advertised matches with no box office appeal and wasn't well promoted until the final weekend, it seems this is about as low a level a WCW pay-per-view is going to do under these market conditions. The freebies turned into a major local news story in Albany, which carried statewide on-the-wire services because there were so many giveaways in order to fill the building that thousands of those who had freebies were turned away at the door.
What an abortion.
Oh my God.
What a clusterfuck. Can you imagine? I can't imagine how we could let things get so out of control, so ill organized that people that had free tickets, they were helping seat fillers, what they were.
Yeah.
And there was no seat to fill. I'm driving down, I'm parking, I'm at the stadium or the arena, and I got a parking deal. My kids are crying and my wife's pissed if she got to go. And all of a sudden, your free ticket's not even worth a shit. It's void. And how do we let that happen? I mean, that's grounds for termination in my view.
Yeah.
But there's so many cooks in the kitchen. We're so disjointed that it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. But man, oh man, that was...
Listen to this next line. Listen to this one, JR. Some of whom arrived at the Civic Center as early as 9 a.m. and waited until 6:30 p.m. only to be turned away. Could you imagine sitting there for 8.5 hours?
No. And I admire the people that came and were there and did that, but God almighty, how embarrassing.
That's sad.
I'm glad that I didn't hear that information before the show because it's so demoralizing.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it, things like that happen, and people share that information before you're to go out to perform. They're not good people. I don't need to hear that shit before we go on the air. Just don't. So tell me tomorrow. Tell me at midnight. Tell me later. But now I'm not interested in hearing that bad news. And there's a lot of bad news, brother.
They said that Civic Center management refused to be interviewed on camera for local television news stories, but did admit that half the crowd was composed of those getting in with coupons, and apologized to those who didn't get in and said that on the coupon it did say, JR, tickets were subject to availability.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it did.
That was the old covering the ass statement.
CYA,
Yeah.
cover your ass.
Yep.
But, come on. I can't imagine doing that to some family or some, how we could create a situation where you might not get in, but you got this coupon that says you got a seat. But in all reality, you might not get in. What the hell? What kind of system is that? What are we thinking? And it's another WCW embarrassment. The left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. You got Cowboy there trying to sort things out, and he didn't even know who all the players were as far as the administration and management was concerned. It was I can tell you this, in Mid-South, where Cowboy had control of everything, things like that didn't occur. We were tight, and we were fan friendly, and that's why their fans are so loyal that they stuck with us as best they could. But golly, can you imagine the PR and how you feel about a brand when this happens? I can't. It was a total embarrassment.
If my kids come to me and say, "Hey, Daddy, they're coming back to Albany, Georgia," I'm like, "Well, that's too fucking bad. We're not going again."
That's right. We're done.
Yeah.
We'll watch it on TV, maybe.
Yeah. Watch it on TBS on Saturday, pal.
Yeah, maybe. But you're right.
Yeah. Well, Meltzer went on. He said, if the card showed anything, we are in for a major change in direction. A lot more mat work and working holds, less high spots, but more attempt at athletic realism. In other words, the U.S. wrestling scene is going to have two promotions going opposite extremes with nothing in the middle. This total re-education process toward a sports-oriented rather than entertainment-oriented emphasis, if it does work, is going to take some time, and like it or not, it at least is a direction. After years of having no real direction, that is a positive. Okay, that's an interesting positive. Judging from the crowd reactions at the show or lack thereof, those live appeared to be bored with little response for anything aside from the first match with Sting and Vader. JR, I got to say, Dave is accurate. I did rewatch the pay-per-view today. In the messages to hear, the word used more than any other was simply boring, with no real complaints about the show other than that one dreaded word. The booking and storylines were focused. The matches all had clean-cut winners, and everyone did their jobs to clean moves. There was none of this fear of having the top baby faces lose cleanly. Clearly, we are entertaining a period of real unpredictability in the results of the big matches, and people will be educated that when it looks like the top face was hit with a devastating move, he may actually get pinned, so it should put more suspense into the matches. At least when the message is fully put across, but you have to walk before you can run. The announcing was great in trying to put over the holds, and also...
Thank you very much, Dave.
There you go, buddy. And also entertaining at the same time.
There you go. How about that?
That's awesome. But with everything that has improved and with all the garbage that has been eliminated, the matches, with two exceptions, were dull. Not technically bad, but no excitement, and too long with no excitement.
Yeah, nobody over. Oh, that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
And the matches didn't have the significance that one would ideally want.
Like I said, having watched this, I'd have to say that here I got to give Dave full credit here. He is spot on with his assessment of the show. You and Jesse did a great job. We're going to have some fun too, because we got some quotes that you guys spit back and forth to each other here too.
Yeah, good.
Good. But JR, right now I want to pause and talk to you a little bit about credit. And you can get your credit as good as the Four Horsemen with Credit Karma, my friends. If you're planning ahead for a big expense, there's always something on that to-do list. Maybe some of our listeners are thinking about home improvements this summer. Maybe you're considering some renovations or finally addressing that old roof, or maybe you're just trying to eliminate that lingering debt. Well, right. Credit Karma can help you, right, JR?
Oh, absolutely. It's a great company, and they've been around a long time, and they can help you find your direction. It's affordable. Obviously, it's very affordable. But I just think they're a hell of a company for us I'm glad they're sponsoring our show, and it's just really good. You know, if you're, I can tell you this, folks, listen to this. If you're ready to apply, you're curious, it's not going to cost you anything, and there's no commitment to inquire.
That's right.
So there's no pressure on you there. So all you got to do is go to creditkarma.com, loan offers to see personalized offers. You give them a little bit of information. They do the math. And when you go to creditkarma.com, the loan officers, they'll help you find the loan that will fit your budget. It's all right there, black and white. So it's really simple. That's creditkarma.com/loan offers. And it gives you the opportunity to get your personal life together. And they do the math. And you can then make the decision after you see the numbers. Do I want to do this or not? So they do the hard work. They do the heavy lifting, as they say, in Oklahoma. And I'm a big believer in creditkarma.com/loan offers.
There you go, JR. Thank you very much. JR, right off the bat, we're joined by Bill Watts as he explains to a very young Eric Bischoff. And when I say very young, this is 30 years ago, Eric. He is looking like Ken, straight from Ken and Barbie, buddy.
He's got a great look. Still does have a great look.
I know, man. Still has way more hair than I ever have. And my goodness.
Lauren Yaffe is immersed in the image of Eric Bischoff.
She
God
sure
almighty.
is.
Yeah, God almighty. Eric's got a great wife. She's a beautiful woman. She's
Lori.
smart.
Yes.
And Lori tolerates this bullshit. It's not on Eric. It's on, Lauren, calm down.
That's right. Get a hold of yourself.
What kind of vitamins you taking?
I don't know, man. They're growing vitamins, that's for sure. So listen, right off the bat, as I said, Bill's there. You got Eric. And he's explaining the NWA matches. The rules are different compared to WCW matches. And they're going through this explanation. Do you feel like, JR, this is necessary at this point? Should there be different rules for NWA and WCW?
No, of course not. Yeah. One set of rules.
Yeah.
Maybe information overload. And maybe some information we just did not need to hear. It could have been done more succinctly and more in a more timely basis because there weren't that many differences. And also wasn't anything that we couldn't cover in the matches. If I say, hey, remember, it's a 20 count on the outside or 10 count or whatever it may be. You can come off the top rope. It's legal in these rules, all that stuff. That could have been done during our entrance or during the match.
Yeah.
It didn't go down that way, but I don't think it was too bad.
It wasn't too bad, but I still don't want a little notebook to have to write down everything so I can.
No, I'm with you. Me neither.
So listen, match one, it's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Nikita Koloff. They defeat Jushin Liger and Brian Pillman in 1925. JR, this match felt so long when I was watching it. Pillman comes off the top rope with a crossbody. Steamboat would roll him up for the pin. Dave Meltzer would give it 3.25 stars. But this is one of those styles clashes. As it could have been tremendous with different workers than Koloff in there, could it not? Because Nikita was. Yeah,
it could have been. Nikita was better suited as that overwhelmingly powerful Russian, and he might not have fit stylistically with Steamboat, Liger, and Pillman.
That's right.
I think that's a fair way of looking at it, and that's not discrediting Nikita. Nikita was a big attraction, but Nikita never found the luster that he had in JCP, Jim Crockett Promotions. He didn't have that. And so we'd let him cool off, or he'd let himself cool off. I don't know, whatever you want to say. But at one time, Nikita, that would have been a real good booking because he was so over.
The other tough part of this too, JR, is that you got 4 baby faces in the ring with each other, right? So that's a little confusing to the crowd.
That's an issue.
Yeah,
that's much akin to what we do on Friday nights on Rampage. You got 3 play-by-play guys sitting at the table, and everybody's role's got to change. Everybody can't be the play-by-play guy. I've been that guy for years, but I stepped back and let Excalibur handle that issue, and he does a phenomenal job. And Tony and I adapt.
Yeah,
we're doing more upscale color, if you will. And but yeah, the 4 baby faces in the match. Who do you boo? Who gives you something to, who's going to be the antagonist? And if you got a scenario where there's no clearly defined antagonist, Paul, what happens is exactly what you mentioned. And for those guys to get 3.25 stars with 4 baby faces, actually was pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. Well, you have Liger and Pillman, by the way, who, man, I could see them becoming a force in a tag team division at some point. Both of those guys just had amazing skill sets, really adapted and really played off each other well.
Yeah, the problem with that deal was the fact that, again, who do you boo?
Yeah.
Who gets your flowers? Who doesn't? Interesting scenario. And unfortunately, the Liger thing, I agree with everything you said about Liger getting over and being a big star for us then, even though his English was non-existent, essentially. He could converse.
Yeah.
But to do promos, I'm not so sure how that's going to go over.
You need a mouthpiece for him. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the other thing, the biggest thing of all. You don't have that many dates on him.
Right.
He was a huge star, and he was a big time guy in Japan, and he was booked a lot, so his availabilities were limited. So that's what you run into there too. So him getting over might have been I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Knowing
you couldn't use them more, right?
All right, you got limited dates, so you make do with what you got.
Well, the Steiners make their way out and they cut a promo on how they're spectators tonight. And buddy, I wish they weren't, because man, I would have loved to seen them be a part of this card, especially when you consider the next matchup. And I'm going to read a little bit about that, what Dave has to say. You have Hase and Hashimoto. They're beating the Freebirds in 9 minutes, 16 seconds when Hase pinned Jimmy Garvin with a Northern Light suplex. Here's a note I was going to talk to you about. Dave says, great to see the return of Nick Patrick, who was in a severe auto accident earlier this year as referee. He did say total clash of styles, although Freebirds seem to clash with almost any style now. Yikes. He gave it a 1.25 stars. What about Nick Patrick, though? So he was in that. Do you remember that whole time when he went through that severe auto accident?
Yeah. It was. He was out for a good while. Nick was out and Nick always did a good job.
He did.
Nick's dad, Jody Hamilton, was one of the original assassins, along with Tom Ernesto. And so he'd been around the business forever. He's a good general to have in the ring. Guys that get confused or didn't know where to go, yee or haw, Nick could help him out. And he was a good official, did a good job. Everywhere he went, he did a good job. And I had nothing but great respect for his father. My favorite tag team of all time, that made the most impact on me as a fan, were the Assassins. I can remember their promos, and I'm talking about. I can remember promos they did in the '60s. This very day. How does that stand up?
That's stands up.
And now they were working with the Kentuckians, and the matches are blood heavy. But as a kid, I was born in '52. So you go back and look at some of that stuff in the mid-'60s. I'm 12, 13 years old, absolutely mesmerized by the Assassins and the Kentuckians in their main event. But we didn't get to see that a lot on TV. But so what we saw was the Assassins killing people, and then in a sane way, because the Assassins don't do moonsaults. They don't lose their damn feet. Didn't have to. But then they got on the mic and there's just gold. They were one of the first heel teams that I ever heard that didn't yell in their promos. They're yelling because they're a heel, and I'm going to be loud and obnoxious, and that's going to work. But nobody's listening to your message. And so when old Jody and Tom Ernesto did their promos, you listened to every word they said, and it was menacing. It was scary. It was just it was another experience, a good experience. So that's my favorite team of all time. If I'm 12 or 13 years old or whatever I was at that point in time, and I can still remember the impact that those promos had on me as a human being, they were pretty damn good.
JR, speaking of impact in tag teams, though, Meltzer did make this statement, Freebirds seem to clash with almost any style now. What do you think of his assessment of P.S. Hayes and Terry Garvin here, or Jimmy Garvin?
I think he was a little hard on him.
Yeah.
The Freebirds were never always a piece of cake behind the scenes and all that. They weren't from day one. But that's because Michael Hayes had such a brilliant mind that he could tell when things are not going well, or they needed to change, or can we try this or whatever. He was like Paul Heyman. He always had an idea. Every minute of every day, Michael had something new to add to the, which is great. But then when they didn't get their way, boo-boo face. Turn that frown upside down.
One other quick point I want to make here too is we didn't get the Steiners at the Great American Bash. Instead, the Steiners wrestled Bam Bam and Dr. Death, like we said that week earlier. In the Clash. Man, did they miss the mark here, not having the Steiners at a Great American Bash pay-per-view?
Probably so. Probably could have booked a little bit more strategically, because I'm a firm believer the match everybody wanted to see were the Steiners versus Doc and Gordy.
Oh yeah.
That's what I wanted to see. That's why I encouraged Bill to let's bring them in. And I said, Bill, it's just a changing times. We got to keep up with their availabilities, and they're not going to be able to work every show, every TV. So let's make all their appearances impactful. And that's what we try to do. And it's hard when you're managing, you're trying to get talent available, and they can't do it because they're in Tokyo or wherever.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of a 3-week tour, that type deal. It's challenging for a booker. So,
and they were IWGP champions at this time too, the Steiners.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. They were a big deal.
Yeah.
And as a match made in heaven, in my view, I didn't care who went over. I really didn't. I didn't want to know. Didn't need to know. But that was what had my interest peaked. I thought that if fans saw Doc and Gordy and the Steiners together once, we've made a fan out of you, because those two teams were just extraordinary in every phase of the game.
JR, I want to talk about another match made in heaven right now, and that's the match made in heaven with me, my mattress, and my Chili Sleep mattress topper.
I'm glad to hear about your love affair with your mattress. Let's hear about it.
Buddy, if your body is rejecting sleep, I can tell you that Chili Sleep can fix it for you, because they make customizable climate-controlled sleep solutions that are going to improve your entire well-being. They have the Euler and Cube sleep systems. They're hydro-powered, temperature-controlled mattress toppers. They fit directly over your mattress, JR, and you can select what temperature you want that mattress pad to be at. You can get that deep sleep, whether you sleep hot or cold. They're designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and give you confidence and energy to power through your day. JR, I'm in love with my Chili Sleep. Yeah,
it's a hell of a product. It really is. And, folks, all I can do is you need to get in the game on this deal. It's a simple solution to sleeping woes.
Yes.
And you control everything, your temperature and all that stuff. Like for me, the worst thing that happened to me is to wake up sweaty.
Yes.
Can't do it, brother. Can't do it, brother. Can't do it. So what I suggest you do, folks, it's real simple. Head over to chilisleep.com/JR to learn more, and to say, listen to this. It's no Mickey Mouse. It's a Mickey Mantle deal. It's a hit.
That's right.
Say 30% off of the purchase of any new Cube or Euler sleep system. This offer is available exclusively for Girl and JR listeners. That's you guys, and only for a limited time, of course. That's Chili, CHILI, sleep.com and /JR, of course. You got to do that to take advantage of the offer. It's a great discount. Wake up refreshed every day. Better deal, better sleep. Wake up refreshed. And you notice that on this show, we work with a lot of advertisers, number one, because we sell product, but we do a lot of sleep-oriented things. And I think that's something important to point out. Conrad has sleep issues. I have sleep issues. You have sleep issues. So we're particularly concerned about that element of our life. So chillisleep.com/JR will solve those issues, and getting a better night's sleep can't be beat. And this is the way to get it done. You're not taking drugs. You're not self-medicating. You're not,
right.
I'm not taking a handful of Ambien.
Yeah. You're not guzzling NyQuil,
Yeah. Or taking Ambien and Crown Royal. That was part of my lifestyle for many years, unfortunately. Wow. So I don't brag about that either. So this is a better deal for you. Really simple. Really simple. Yeah.
There you go.
Save 30%.
Yeah.
It's a great discount.
All you need now, JR, is that Chili Sleep mattress topper, a Twinkie, and a glass of milk, and you'll be right out. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Sign me up for the Twinkies.
Yeah, you got it, brother. Well, listen, next up is Bill Watts. Again, he's on our screen, and this time he's got the big gold belt, and all of a sudden, this is what the Observer says. On the pay-per-view Sunday night, the NWA belt that Ric Flair held was displayed by Bill Watts, who gave the belt to Hiro Matsuda. WCW had won possession of the belt in a lawsuit several months back, but ironically, after winning possession, had yet to pay Flair for the belt itself.
Now, why would that be? Why in the hell would that be? They were waiting for the check to clear? They didn't have the cash. Of course they had the money. It's Turner Broadcasting.
Yeah.
Of course they had the money. Somewhere along in the accounting trail, that got lost in the shuffle. It wasn't the fact that Turner didn't want to pay. It wasn't the fact that Turner didn't have the money to pay. Maybe the accountants didn't get even the memo. I don't know. As silly as some of the shit we were doing, you don't know, man. So I don't know. It's just so frustrating. Some of these stories, we go back and relive them.
It's like, is this real? Did this really happen? Yeah.
I need a beverage.
You need a beverage. Well, listen, JR, the financial deal was eventually worked out. Okay.
Oh yeah. Everybody got paid.
Yeah.
But why did it take so long?
Yeah.
No reason. Left hand, right hand, you guys need to communicate.
Yeah, so it did get worked out. They saw WCW finally pay Flair a figure reportedly of slightly more than $28,000, and it was worked out earlier in that same week. The fact that the last time Flair's belt appeared on TV was a promotion he wasn't working for, and that Watts prominently mentioned his name on the pay-per-view, he did, is going to lead to the Flair's jumping ship rumors. Flair's WWF contract doesn't expire until September 5th, 1993. Remember, kids, it's July 92 here, so Flair's not going anywhere. Don't think for a moment, though, according to Dave, that Vince McMahon isn't going to be agreeable to release him from his deal at a time when McMahon has a dearth of main event heels, and given the fact that Flair would be a major plus for his opposition. On a similar subject, a companion lawsuit by WCW against Titan Sports for usage of the title belt is expected to be settled sometime this week. WCW is suing Titan for damages caused by using its prize symbol, the NWA belt, on WWF television shows, causing the promotion embarrassment within the wrestling community. The sides are close to agreeing to a nominal financial settlement. The belief is between $30,000 and $40,000 is being discussed, along with a permanent injunction against using the belt or the facsimile belt that Titan made and used for about a week, which the courts look down upon. In other words, Titan is apparently agreeing not to ever use any footage involving that belt in highlights, footage released to the media, or in videos. Well, did Watts ever think he'd be able to get Ric Flair back? Was that ever a conversation, JR, that you heard? Or
oh yeah, we felt confident. Bill, I can tell you this: when Bill was never a member of the NWA ever. But he used the champion. And he used the champion because, one, I think, you always got to go to cash and creative, right? That's the two big factors. And I think, and also Bill had a great relationship with Rick. They liked each other. They would drink and, the Nature Boy stuff. Cowboy assigned me to babysit, which I think affected what marriage was that? Second marriage, I think. Crazy. But I think we all thought eventually it was his home, man. Yeah. It was his home. He felt comfortable there. And he was beloved. And the folks at Turner themselves loved Nate. So the thought of him never coming back was never discussed. We always believed at some point in time, Nate should come home. And he'd come home to Cowboy where he was comfortable, confident in his Cowboys booking and their communication abilities. So, no, man, I think we believe that Nate should come back to the roost, come back to the nest, and off we would go.
So, JR, here, this big announcement, this title, according to Bill, is going to represent the NWA. It's going back with Hiro Matsuda. They're going to wrestle for that championship. However, it is not the WCW championship. That's held by Sting, and Sting's going to wrestle Vader. And whoever wins that, over in Japan, that title could eventually face the WCW champion, et cetera, et cetera. Was there ever talk once you guys got the big gold belt back? Hey, let's just make this the WCW championship.
Yeah, some. Again, under the same premise of not having too many titles. The NWA, the brand of the NWA at that point in time meant less than it ever had. So I would say, if given a vote, as we speak today, I would say, let's focus on the big gold belt. And that's our symbol. Call it a day. Let's not overthink this stuff, man.
Yeah.
And the more we overthought it, the deeper in the minutia and the political manure we would delve into, and we'd have had enough of that, man. So that's my theory. Again, the same thing goes back to the too many titles, too many symbols, too many belts. I've never been a belt guy. I know Conrad. I've been to Conrad's house a few times. And I'm sure you've been there, but he's got this amazing belt collection.
Incredible.
I mean, he's got belts from everywhere.
Ring used, man, the stuff that was actually in.
Yeah. Good stuff. So
history.
Yeah, but I think as far as the Nature Boy question, we all believe that at some point Nate would come back and work with Cowboy, and they'd be happy. They could communicate, and they did. But it was some crazy times, buddy. Really some crazy times.
And in your estimation, if you could go back and do it over again, once you acquired the big gold belt, that should have been the WCW World Championship, because that was the symbol of WCW.
Yeah, simple, easy to think. Now, I don't know why it was so hard then, but a lot of politics.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A lot of politics, buddy.
Well, JR, our next partner has a product I use literally every day, and it's Athletic Greens. I started
You love this stuff, don't you?
I do, man. It's so much better than pills.
I had a guest today in my house, Ash Abelson, and he saw my Athletic Greens last shipment on my dining room table.
Okay.
And said, asked if I used it. I said, yeah, it works. It helps me. And he said, well, I use it too. So he
that's awesome.
Out of the blue. So that's pretty cool. But we got a lot of good talking points about this product as far as what it does for you and why it works, which you can explain.
Well, the crazy part is it's just one scoop and 75 high quality vitamins and minerals. I mean, I don't know where else you're going to find that. It improves your gut health, guys. Sleeping better.
Better.
There we go. We're back to sleeping. And that's what we do. We like to do here on this show when we're not recording. Improving your focus. What's not to like, man? It's a slam dunk. Better sleep quality, recovery. And here it is, less than $3 a day. I would say, JR, it is way worth it for all that improvement with your gut health and sleeping and focus and all those vitamins.
Here's what I'm impressed with, Paul. The product has received over 7,000 5-star reviews. It's hard to get 7,000 likes for anything, but you got them with this product. 5-star reviews are hard to come by, and people aren't overly complimentary on any product. It seems like we're all a little cynical, but it's something that you know when you see a product that gets that kind of response, something's working, something's right about this. So if you're looking to improve your sleep, your gut health, which I have to be very careful of. I had 12 or 13 inches, I don't even remember now, of my large intestines removed back in the day, thanks to diverticulitis and diverticulosis, almost killing me. But it's just we have to take care of our gut health. We have to take care of our sleeping habits. this is not, well, maybe I'll try this no, try it and get ahead of the curve. I don't have any sleep issues right now, or I don't have any issues with my digestive tract. Yeah, but what if you do? What are you going to do about it? Are you prepared? Because eventually it's going to affect you. We're human.
Yeah.
And so this is a way to get ahead of the curve. And this is a way to help your health in multiple ways.
That's right. And listeners, all you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/JR. Again, it's athleticgreens.com/JR to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. It works for JR. It works for his friends. It works for me, and it can work for you too.
Yep.
JR, we move along to match 3. It's Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham defeating Rick Rude and Steve Austin. My goodness, I said it earlier at the top of the show. Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, everywhere on this card.
Yeah.
Dustin and Barry Windham, they would beat Rick Rude and Austin in 19 minutes, 16 seconds. Austin tried
to point out the fact the second or third match we've had that's around the 20-minute mark.
Yes.
And you can tell a story.
Yeah. And Austin tried to pile drive Windham, and Rhodes came off the top with the clothesline, but Meltzer only gave it a 1.5 stars, my friend.
Well, it's subjective. That's his opinion.
Yeah.
And hey, look, Dave Meltzer's been a friend of mine for over 30 years. We don't communicate that much anymore simply for scheduling and things like that. But I will say Dave's concerned enough about me that he checks on my health about once or twice a month. I appreciate that. All my friends that check in on me. How you doing, JR? How's this working? So he has an opinion, and I respect his opinion. I don't have to agree with him. And unlike a lot of fans, when you see something that you disagree with, all of a sudden that person that made that opinion you didn't like is a douchebag. And I don't want to be called a douchebag.
Yeah.
JR ain't no douchebag.
That's right.
So
who cares what Twitter says?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But they did a good job, and like we pointed out, 19-minute match, all in. It's pretty damn impressive to me. That's a good story, and I don't know what Dave's primary concern was, but 1.5 stars I thought was incredibly low. I can't figure out why it would be that way.
I think,
but nonetheless, that was his opinion.
Yeah. I think part of the problem, JR, was it was the first heel versus face tag match, as Meltzer alludes to, but man, the crowd just wasn't really into it. And I think, much for the shows today that we watch, when the crowd's into something, it just takes a match to the next level.
Yeah. Tune in Wednesday nights and see how that works.
And it just wasn't there.
Have you ever seen a TV crowd more emotionally invested than the AEW crowd? It doesn't matter who's out there. Our audience is there to be a part of the show. And I think that's just absolutely wonderful. But you got to have talent that's over, and we do on Wednesday nights and Fridays. So it's not a new trend, but that's what you always shoot for, obviously. But in any event, we're on to bigger and better tag matches, maybe.
Yeah. Hey, listen, and people can say we're biased and you're biased because you work there, but buddy,
yeah,
I've been to both brand shows, all the companies, and the AEW, at least their pay-per-views, man, is rock concert. Like,
yeah.
That's all I can say about it. So
I'm with you.
Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Terry Bam Bam Gordy. Man, those guys just badasses. They beat Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Nikita Koloff in 21 minutes, 39 seconds. There's your time. Another long tag team match.
Yeah. It's long enough to tell a story, not rush it. I can see Doc and Gordy wrestle every day, all day, because I just love their work. And they do such a great job for us. I miss Doc and all that stuff. So interesting times, buddy. Interesting times.
I'm gonna read the assessment. Hopefully it doesn't make you so mad that your headphones don't blow off your head.
I'm gonna listen to you.
All right, here we go. When Steamboat was on the top rope, Gordy shoved him off, and Williams caught him, rammed him into the turnbuckles, and gave him a forward power slam for the pin. This was one of the dullest matches I've ever seen involving wrestling of this caliber. That were all trying hard and not blowing up or missing spots. The amateur stuff was fine to set the stage in the beginning, but it lasted way too long. It looked legitimate, but wrestling promoters learned sometime in the 19th century that legitimate wrestling isn't marketable, and that's when someone got the idea for showy moves and started making money. When they finally got heat on Steamboat, there was no crowd reaction, and this is the number 2 face in the promotion who is a master at getting crowd reaction. At some point during the match, Williams gave Steamboat a move. I think it was a backbreaker, and Steamboat legit hurt his ribs, but no word how seriously. Koloff made the hot tag at 14:45, but he was then controlled on the mat until making it a hot tag to Steamboat several minutes later, and Steamboat came in for the finish. Match was a dud. JR, I'm going to go back to one line. This was one of the dullest matches I've ever seen involving wrestling of this caliber, that we are all trying hard and not blowing up, or that we're all not trying hard and not blowing up or missing spots.
You wonder why the talent was not motivated. Because obviously there's no rational reason that match should not have been pristine.
Yeah.
I can't believe you could have a bad match with Doc and Gordy and then, of course, Steamboat. And that's not sliding Koloff, but as far as just being a all around seasoned dude, you had him in there. I just wonder sometimes why the talent was not more motivated. And I don't know the answer to that question. But I don't know how the booking wasn't bad. I mean, it's stars.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. It's a mystery to me how that could have all went down and as it did. And I just can't believe that any tag match involving Doc and Gordy was a dud. Just what?
This is like the third or fourth tag match too that has gone at least 20 minutes, and these aren't the 20-minute affairs that we're used to now. These were to his point earlier. Dave said it earlier. There were a lot of rest holds, and there were a lot of some slow.
I hate that term.
I know.
I really do.
I know.
Rest holds. They should be selling. There should be movement. There should be some activity. There should be continued storytelling, even in a quote unquote rest hold. I understand his, Dave's very particular. He saw Doc and Gordy and all that Japanese stuff at their very best.
That's true.
And so it wasn't like they're wrestling Hase and some other star. Like
we have
Hashimoto.
them coming back up again. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Listen, wrestling fans, it's time to win with Zen. Get to WrestlingPrizes.com to register for your chance to win one of our 4 once-in-a-lifetime digital Q&A sessions with wrestling legends Ric Flair, Eric Bischoff, our very own Jim Ross, or Mick Foley. Winners also get an autographed replica championship belt and a prize pack from Zen, America's #1 nicotine patch. Register once per day now through July 15th, WrestlingPrizes.com. There's no purchase necessary to enter or win. Open to U.S. residents 21 and over. Void where prohibited. For official rules, visit WrestlingPrizes.com. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to SaveWithConrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from SaveWithConrad.com.
JR, we move on, and it is Dustin Rhodes and Wyndham.
And another tag match.
Another tag match. Hashimoto and Hase, and this one didn't go 20, but it might as well have. It went 15. Wyndham would pin Hase with a lariat. Dave said first half of the match was all scientific and not bad, even though, again, here's the key, I'm telling you, no crowd reactions. And the Japanese did so many moves U.S. fans aren't educated to yet. Actually, from a technical standpoint, this was a good match. Rhodes was punished until Hase missed a double knee drop off the top, and Rhodes made the hot tag to Wyndham, who went to the finish. He gave this one 2 stars. But you can see the differences in focus on this show is to reestablish, I guess, JR, amateur wrestling. You have these 15 to 20 minute tag matches.
Yeah. It was, it became a little formulaic there in this card as we're reviewing it. But golly, Rhodes and Wyndham together were great. Hashimoto and Hase were friggin' great. But again, at the end of the day, Paul, here's the story. We were not providing on this night what the fans wanted to see. If we had some talents over, more talents over, that could emotionally invest in the story, we would be talking about this topic. But we are, and there's a good reason. The crowd was flat. They didn't give a shit. And so I don't know whose fault that is. Was it our fault? Is the promotion's fault for not having these talents hot and ready going into this thing? We didn't have the time to get Hashimoto and Hase over. It's hard to get footage from the Japanese. The communication issues, what it was daunting. So I just think the fans weren't quite aware, but they didn't know it, but they're seeing a hell of a match. Dave may have said it's 2 stars, or what is it, 2 stars, right?
2 stars on this one, yeah.
So it probably was a lot better match than that, but nonetheless, that was his opinion. I thought it was a pretty decent affair. I would have given it another star at least. Hashimoto was a beast. Hase was about as good as you're going to find. And I got familiar with those guys when we did our tour of Japan, or the going over there and doing matches and seeing a lot of tape. So I had the opportunity to see for myself how these guys worked and what their go-tos were and things of that nature. But the fans in general had not had that opportunity, and that was adversely done.
Yeah, and by the way, Hase, he filled in due to an injury. He wasn't even originally supposed to be on the show, but there was an injury, so he came in to fill in with here. So listen, I had talked about this a little bit earlier, but here's a couple lines in here between you and Jesse, and it's hard to tell if this is the beginning of you two not working together smoothly or just banter, but I got a couple examples. Good old Jesse says, "I love Rude. He reminds me of me." And then you go, "I don't know, Jesse. Rude's a pretty good-looking guy." And then Jesse says, "So am I. I've done 7 movies. How many have you done, Ross?"
Yeah, so, that was a little jab.
Yeah,
it wasn't a jab. It was just,
playful.
Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah. Jesse and I didn't have the greatest chemistry, which I've explained on more than one occasion.
We've talked about that.
Yeah, and that was just my ego. To be frank about it.
But you were ready to come back, man.
Yeah, at least I'm willing to admit it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad also, especially getting at our age, Jesse and I are about in the same age group, that we have mended those fences. It's a big deal for me in this stage of my life to not any bad things that I've involved in that respect, as far as like Jesse. Jesse and I could have been tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. He had a great wit. He had product knowledge. He had presence. He had that voice. It's just a lot of good things that I did not capitalize on, and I will admit my downfall there. But Yeah, he was but I thought he was fun to work with. He kept you off balance and kept you glued to what he's going to say next. And I like that. That's why I worked so well with Heyman.
Yeah.
You never know what that crazy bastard's going to say. But what he said as a rule was spot on. And people got to remember too, that Paul Heyman was different than today's Paul Heyman. In as much as his role was, he's cast differently, or he's booked differently. So, but he was extraordinary too as a commentator. But I didn't dislike working with Jesse. I think it's a misnomer. I just was pissed he was making about twice as much money as me, working half the schedule. That's my fault.
Yeah.
That's not Jesse's fault.
Right.
That's my fat ass's fault. I should have gone in with my lawyer or whatever and said, JR needs more money because the pay scale is off balance. It's out of kilter. But I didn't, because again, I'm working for Cowboy, my mentor, the guy that kind of shepherded me through this crazy world of pro wrestling. And I just didn't want to open up another issue. Just didn't want to do it. So I should have been better with Jesse. And I always apologize for that. And the thing about it is that I saw him do something on, I guess he was promoting an appearance he was going to do. He was getting ready to do. And he said, he wasn't even aware that I had come on like this or other scenarios and fallen on my sword. And he didn't know it. And he was very impressed. He's very happy. And I think it brought a little peace there.
That's awesome.
So somebody's missing the boat by not booking JR and Jesse in an appearance at an event, like a autograph signing type thing, because I think we would draw. We've never done an appearance, and I think we both still have enough name identity that still can make it work. So I think it'd be fun as hell.
And I think that some of the banter that you guys were doing here, that's reminiscent of old Gorilla and Bobby and how they used to kind of go at each other,
Exactly. We had a clearly defined heel and clearly defined baby face.
So good.
God, what a concept.
Yep. Well, listen, here's Ron Simmons. He's out with Tony and Magnum, and you can already tell, JR, that Ron is in line for the big push. In your estimation, was he ready for it at this point?
Well, he had to be.
Because we were going there. But was he? Yeah.
He probably could have used a little bit more seasoning in the main event spot, learning how to carry that role. But we were always willing to give Ron a chance. We liked Ron and we respected Ron. And to this very day, he's one of the most respected guys in the business. And I think the world of him. But he's a good dude. But was he ready? It's hard to say who. The only way you can say that somebody was ready or they were not is did they get the results that you were looking for? That might have been the downfall for Ron. The territory didn't explode when he became champion.
He became champion. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here as we go, because you're going to have Sting Vader and then Ron's on the scene. So we'll talk about that. But before we get there, there's something that we want to pause and talk about to all of you about that is extremely important. And yes, it's time to talk about something I'm super passionate about, and it's protecting your family. Yes, this is a life insurance ad for GoliathLife.com, but to me, this is really about peace of mind. Think about insurance for a second. We all get medical and auto insurance, yet we never even know if we're going to have a need for it. Let me let you in on a little secret. You need life insurance because, unfortunately, we're all going to pass away at some point.
Unfortunately, you're right. Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah. Now, as you let that reality sink in, think about what would happen if your family stopped having your income tomorrow. If you don't have a plan for that, you need to visit GoliathLife.com, and I mean right now. Listen, I've lost 2 friends in their 40s in the last year and a half, and I don't even want to think about what their families would be going through had they not had life insurance. If you don't have it, get it. Right, JR?
Yeah, don't be an idiot. There's certain things in our life that we can easily take care of, we can address. And this is one of them. It's that simple. GoliathLife.com is what you need. Life insurance. I've had life insurance since I became an adult. I haven't yet acted like an adult all the time, but but I believe in the concept. You can't leave your family empty-handed. So unless you got a ton of money in the bank and savings and something like that, maybe you get a pass. 99% of us aren't there. We have to have some protection. So I believe that GoliathLife.com, it makes buying life insurance simple. There are no hidden fees, no upsells, no hassle, and hell, not even a phone call.
Nope.
So it's in your hands, folks. You can change the end game. You can change the finish. Because like Paul said, and unfortunately, it's simply a reality. We're all going to pass away at some point. And when you pass away with all the grief, the strife, we all know what it's like to lose a loved one. I lost my little Jan. But if it had been the other way around, she was in good shape because of life insurance. So GoliathLife.com is check it out and see how easy it is. And all of a sudden you're going to say, well, I really must have been a dumbass to not pursue this because I know I needed it. I didn't want to make the commitment. I couldn't afford it. Well, if you don't know what the numbers are, how do you know you can't afford it? Because you can't debate me that you don't have a need or we need to take care of our families once we're not here. So I'm a big believer in protecting the family. We've talked about that a lot today here on the show. There's ways that you can change the end game. There's ways that you can book a different finish. Remember, you have the eraser. You're the booker. Book yourself a win with GoliathLife.com.
Well said. JR, we move on. This is the big one. It's Big Van Vader pinning Sting in 17 minutes, 17 seconds to win the WCW title. Hot match all the way, Meltzer said, with Vader going up for several suplexes. Given what was going to happen, it was the perfect storyline since Sting destroyed the invincible monster from the beginning since he was doing the job. Vader used the powerbomb finisher, and Meltzer gave this one 4 big stars, Jim. This is historic in many ways, buddy, because Vader most likely became the first wrestler in history ever to win the World Heavyweight title in 4 countries. Think about it. He's won the IWGP in New Japan, the CWA from Europe, the UWA from Mexico, and now here the WCW title. I mean, he was the man.
It's amazing. Like the Cowboy said years ago, athletic big men draw money. And Leon, even though he's probably 380 at that time, some way he was athletic as hell, and that was I always had great respect for Vader because of that. He didn't hold things back. He, when Leon was in a good frame of mind, he's hard to beat, boy, hard to beat. And he is the epitome of monster heel. Big Van Vader is the epitome of a monster heel, and as good a monster heel as I recall calling matches for. And I called a bunch of big super heavyweight guys, one-man gang, Big Boss Man weighed 350.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys we could keep naming that were big, successful super heavyweights. And so I loved how Leon worked. He was just terrific. What he wanted to be. He could also be a big baby. And he had to understand that to understand his what motivated him. And I had a great rapport with Leon. Enough that his son, Jesse, who wrestled for a while, was a 5-star football recruit who had committed to UCLA, but guess where he went? Boomer Sooner.
Oh, there you go. Oklahoma, baby.
So Leon and I had a great rapport and Leon was so loving of his son and proud of him that, we got him to come to decommit to UCLA and commit to Oklahoma. So Leon and I had a great relationship over the years, and we would fight and argue, and he didn't understand this or that. And when he wanted to make a point, he called me Mr. Ross. I said, what the fuck you doing? I ain't Mr. Ross to you. I haven't been Mr. Ross yet. Now I'm Mr. Ross because you don't like something. So he was just he was a hell of a character, and he's missed. But and you talk about when you go through this list of guys at some point, and just you're having a beer with your buddies, who's the best pro wrestling super heavyweight? If you don't mention Leon, you're not paying attention.
Right.
That's being as stupid as not checking out Goliath.com or Goliathlife.com. You can do something about this issue. You can fix your issue, and you can take all that pressure and stress off of you. You want to go to bed tonight not knowing that if you don't have insurance, how your family's life's going to be if something happens to you. You know, when Jan got killed, I didn't plan for it. I had no clue. I thought, she was 10 years younger than me. We're going to have this long life together. We're saving money. We're doing really well. And all of a sudden she's gone. And I had to live with it. And I'm still living with it. It ain't easy. But Vader is, if he's not the best all-time super heavyweight, I don't know who is. And there are a lot of good ones. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good ones. But Vader is always got to be the top 2 or 3. Or, at best.
This is the match worth going back and checking out if you want to watch Great American Bash 92. It's this Vader Sting match.
Just watch that.
That's our recommendation of the week. Okay.
Yeah. Just watch that. And
there you go.
You'll be happy that you did. For Meltzer to give this match 4 stars on a show that was anemic, on life support, terminally ill, this is the one to watch, and you'll see what we're talking about. It was the bloom on the rose. There weren't many blooms in the show. Of course, my agent's name's Barry Bloom, and of course, I'm kidding.
That takes us down a whole nother rabbit trail. But listen, I just learned something. If I'm ever get annoyed at you or you're annoyed at me, I know what the answer is. I just go straight to Mr. Ross. Yes, Mr. Ross.
That's right. Don't bullshit me, buddy.
Listen, I want to talk about Ron Simmons because this is a part of this match here. He's shown throughout the entire match. He's watching intently. You can feel it.
A little too much.
Yep. You know what the setup is here. You know what the transition and all that. I got to ask, Bill Watts was a huge proponent in his Mid-South day of the Junkyard Dog. I mean, listen, JYD was wildly over in Mid-South. Do you think he saw a little, hey, I think I could do the same?
Yeah, we want to tap into the African-American audience.
Yes.
It was time. Even though Cowboy was, Southerner, had stories about his, racism and all. I mean, he's a racist, okay? But listen to this, you idiot. He played with a integrated football team at a high level. And he just was, I've been in his office where promoters and bookers have called him thinking and telling him, because I heard it on the speakerphone, I heard it. You're killing the business by how you use the blacks. And I always thought that's so obscenely behind times, pathetic, that, make you wonder if you want to stay in the business. Promoters calling Cowboy. Because Cowboy had a black booker. And Cowboy had the top babyface as an African-American.
That's right.
So he had Dog and he had Ernie.
Ernie Ladd, yeah.
And Ernie was the booker. So it was a strange time in our nation. And I'll always applaud Cowboy for going with Ron, because his fellow peers in the front offices, none of them were happy. McMahon would have Bobo Brazil as his token African-American. And scary how the mindset was at that time. Thank God, Paul, that's just a memory. It's guys like me and you talking about it because it's topical on this particular show. But how far behind the pro wrestling business was is underscored many times. And to be quite frank about it, it's embarrassing to be a part of the pro wrestling business in that era with that mindset. Just, you can't dissect it, cut it up, look at it, examine it, and find any, well, I can understand that. No, you can't understand. That's not good. It's not good stuff. everybody should have an equal right. We talked about earlier in the show about our movie Millie.
Yes, exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
A white Caucasian lady, undersized, becomes the top star in the world in her gender. Who the hell would have thought that? And even when you got state athletic commissions that are basically public officials saying that two women can't wrestle each other, so you do this real smart thing. You put the female in with a man. And I just think that is horrendous. I'm not a big fan of intergender matches anyway, which I've gotten heat over in the past from people that say, well, you're just old school. Or I am old school. I just don't find it logical that men and women need to compete. I don't want to see men beating up women in a wrestling match or in a wrestling ring. You're flipping the channels and you stop on that. It's disturbing for younger audiences to see a big muscled up guy, even though he's working, beat the shit out of a woman. It's illogical. And for some women that hear, and now we have a good audience of females, they're going to say, well, JR, you're wrong. You're cutting, you're lessening our opportunities because you're cutting the potential matches down to almost zip. No, I cut the matches down so you can wrestle with your own gender. And that's how I look at it. So, but anyway, Ronnie was on that night. I remember we overexposed him. We were trying too hard to get him over, trying too hard. And, I don't know that Ron Simmons would ever be Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
JYD is a little bit different era in the heart of the Mid-South. His role was new. You didn't have black baby faces that drew any money. So when Dog left to go to WWE, we had the guy to replace him named Hacksaw Butch Reed, who could have slipped into that spot seamlessly. Instead, we hired every African-American guy that didn't have a wrestling job. Brickhouse Brown, George Wells, on and on. And none of them got over in that respect. That's like the WWF back in the day trying to recreate Jimmy Snuka with Sifi Afi and other guys. So just because you're an island guy, island boy,
yes,
doesn't mean you're going to fit right in. You're going to slot you right in there, and nobody's going to notice. So it wasn't the background or the hometown or the zip code that got this guy over. What got him over was his look and his skill set,
who he was,
and having career. That's what got him over.
Yeah, that's who he was.
So it's an interesting thing. I think during the show, it's become a more interesting show than I thought it might be because of the things we're pointing out.
Yeah.
And we're close to changing things in that regard, I think. But there are times there that we discussed here that, we got to just be smart about how we, how we use people and how we represent people.
I think you mentioned too, it's like, man, this is kind of embarrassing to see, whether it's with women or whether it's with, African-American, the black, wrestler. But I also think, to me now, it's encouraging to see what we've learned from that and where we're at now.
Big time.
To me, I look at it the positive side of where we're at. And as we reflect back, we can say, my God, how far we've come. And we're so thankful
exactly.
for it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Because what we did then wouldn't fly now.
No.
It would not make air but once.
Yep. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So listen, JR, in a few weeks here on Grilling JR, we're going to watch what is, in hindsight, if you think about it, a historical WCW Saturday night. It's where Jake Roberts makes his debut in WCW. Sting is injured, and that's when Ron is chosen to be the replacement for the WCW title match against Big Van Vader. So listen, stay tuned for that one. I'm telling you now, we're going to have fun watching that together. If I'm back with JR then, I'll be looking forward to that one. Let's get on to the main event and get to some fan questions, and we'll put a bow on this one, JR. The final match, it's Terry Gordy and Williams, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, defeating Dustin and Barry Windham. JR, another tag match, 21 minutes, 1 second to win the...
We got to point out, Paul, we haven't.
Yeah.
My bad. This is a tournament.
It is. It's the NWA Tag Title Tournament.
So you're seeing all this, some of the repetitiveness of this play out now, and you're wondering, well, got another tag, well, it's a tournament.
Yeah,
That's what you're going to have. And I think that we came up with the right combination to close the show. We had confidence in it. Look, we gotta remember we're closing the show with this, and Sting and Vader wasn't the main event. Oh, they were the main event. They were a main event.
Yeah,
but they didn't close the show.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. But the Steiners come out. Ole and Doug Dillinger are outside. They kick the Steiners out. After 20 minutes of sudden death, things picked up in the match. A few near falls before Williams pins Rhodes after a clothesline. The WCW tag champions at the time were Dr. Death and Gordy. They become the NWA tag team champions. They're merged together at this point. They are the unified, tag team champions. That's how they'll be defended going on out. It kind of morphs into just being the WCW champion. But Meltzer notes here, the show again just ends on a sour note. The crowd really reacted well to the Sting Vader match. It worked so differently than everything else. Everything else was just dead. And there you go. That's how the crowd ends. Thoughts on this entire pay-per-view, JR?
Well, in hindsight, Paul, we should have closed with Sting and Vader.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer at this point. But the tournament was the focal point of the show. And therefore it got that spot. It got that spotlight. It's going to close. You're the show closer. And certainly they had plenty of time. They got 20 plus minutes. And, it made sense as in a tournament format. The only thing that's arguable to me is that Doc and Gordy and Rhodes and Wyndham, it's a great match. It's a great match.
On paper, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if it had not closed, it should have closed the show. If it had not closed the show, people would have a different perception of it. But they couldn't follow Vader and Sting.
Bingo.
So they're simple as that. But the focal point was the tournament. This was the finals of the tournament. So a solid argument can be made that we closed with the right match. Whether we did or we didn't, I don't know. It's arguable.
Yeah.
Obviously, in hindsight, there's no doubt what we should have done is Sting and Vader. But here's the thing. A lot of old bookers were not crazy about ending with a heel. Doc and Gordy were baby faces, I think. But I know that Rhodes and Barry were. So, looking back at it again, I would have looked at it and said, we're going to close with the title.
Yeah.
Go back to the title.
That's right.
Put some shine on it. Shine some light on it. Let these guys go out and deliver a hell of a match, and they did. And then,
and it was a title change, JR. It was a title change, world title change.
I agree.
Yeah.
And maybe, like I said, part of the issue may have been that Vader was a major heel.
Yeah.
Sting was the coveted babyface. That could have been the reason that Cowboy decided to go the other way with that.
The Observer readers voted this one 52.4% thumbs down. Hard to disagree on this one, Jim.
No, I would have said thumbs in the middle.
Okay.
It wasn't a great show. As you suggested earlier, of which I agree, the Vader Sting match is the one you want to go back and watch.
That's right.
If you've never seen Doc and Gordy in a tag match to any degree on a high level, they're also investing some time in. But if you want to watch one thing from this somewhat ridiculous show, you want to go with the title change.
That's right.
Leon was ready to work. Leon came to work.
Sting gets busted open. It's a crazy match. You'll have fun.
Yeah,
it's a great
you'll
match.
love it.
Yeah.
If you hadn't seen it, fans, you take my word for it.
Yeah.
You're going to love it. You're going to enjoy it, especially based on everything it was surrounded by.
The show draws another 0.4 buy rate to match the Beach Blast, and it's the last time we'd see the Great American Bash on pay-per-view until 1995. So there you go. It's a 3-year hiatus after that one. JR, let's get to the fan questions. We'll have a few of those, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
First one we hear from is tolerance is acceptance. They write in and say, was Sting overrated from a money standpoint? He seems to have been given a huge pass.
I don't think so. He was going to be the franchise guy, and I think that's a good selection. He got hurt. He stopped. He progressed. He started over. But no, I'm a big believer in Sting. My God, did you see the bump he took the other night on AEW?
Oh man,
what the hell? I asked him. I said, "What are you thinking?" He just started laughing.
Yeah,
he's having a blast.
He is. He's probably having one of the best times of his career right now.
And that's what he said to me. Rossi, I'm having fun.
There you go.
Call me Rossi forever.
Rossi, yeah. All right, next up, Allred the Giant says, why did WCW decide to, here we go, JR, decide to have the Steiners lose on the Clash of Champions to Williams and Gordy instead of having that as the NWA tournament final at the Great American Bash pay-per-view, and had Nikita Steamboat face Gordy Williams in the final? So I guess the big question here is, again, the Steiners not being a part of the Bash.
Yeah, it's a head-scratcher.
Yeah.
It is a head-scratcher. And I agree with the Alfred the Giant, if that is your real name.
I highly doubt it.
I get it. I understand it. But,
yeah.
I know that they were hoping that match would pop a number at the Clash.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Ray LeDuc, up next. If they hadn't paired Vader with Harley, who else would it have been?
Someone with a lot of patience. You're traveling with Leon. And here in Jacksonville on the sports talk station every day, Monday through Friday anyway, from at noon-ish, they have a segment called Lunch with Leon. And talking about Leon Searcy, the outstanding offensive lineman for the Jags back in the day. And, Leon was a load. I talked, and Harley was the perfect guy for this. Harley knew every trick in the book. He knew every shortcut. He knew when Leon needed a hug or when Leon needed a kick in the ass. I'm sure there are other guys. Cornette would have been good. Cornette would have been great in that role. But I can't find any qualms in Harley and Leon, because it needed a veteran with patience and knowledge, and that was Harley. And Harley was very motivated to be in that role. He had come to the end of his run. He needed work. He needed a job, make some money. And so he got a tough assignment. Because I talked to Harley at every TV and privately about how's it going with Leon. Lunch with Leon.
Leon Searcy, former first-round pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers, too. There you go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And he lives here in Jacksonville now.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's good. So, I think Harley's the guy.
Harley's the guy. Matt Godfrey's up next, grilling JR. JR, do you think Sting versus Vader is an underrated rivalry?
Yeah, kind of. I really do. We finally got to a place where Sting could perform, in a Sting way. He wasn't hurt. There was a little build-up of this thing, and I think the match proves that. So I think it was a little bit underrated, but we had so many false starts, man.
Yeah.
It's better. I know in the NFL, it's 5-yard penalty, replay the down. But I don't think, I think they were underrated. I really do. And I love both guys. I was involved in their careers. But they had good chemistry. For whatever reason, Sting was so likable that nobody wanted to shortchange him on effort or anything along those lines. But whatever reason, they had chemistry. And you can't replicate it. You can't manufacture it. They just have to find guys that want to work together. And they wanted to work together.
The more and more I hear that people talk about Sting, because I've heard Kurt Angle talk about Sting over and over again, it seems like he was probably one of the most likable, hot world champion baby faces of all time.
Yeah, he was. His Steve Borden's popularity transcended his in-ring work. I don't know that he was going to be regarded as one of the greatest workers of all time, but I will say that Sting was one of the greatest attractions of all time. That was his, to me, he was
And just
that
a
was
nice
his deal.
guy. Everybody loved him.
Yeah. And he's still loved.
Yeah.
He comes out with Darby, and you should notice how Sting stands on the entrances, how he always gives Darby the lead.
That's right.
He has, as a veteran, he has no issues sharing the spotlight, as shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I'm a big Sting believer.
Class act.
Oh, buddy, yeah, absolutely. And the thing about it, that's what he does behind the scenes. But you look over there, he's talking to this guy. You look over there, he's talking to that guy. Sting he is just so giving of his time and his knowledge. And he also got to remember, Paul, that a lot of those guys are meeting Sting in the AEW for the first time, even though they grew up a Little Stinger, and they listen to him as they should. So I'm a big Sting believer and fan, and the things he's doing now for AEW shocks me.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and he's willing to do all those stuff. It's just, as I've told you and all of our fans, I never really need to know the finish. I'll call it. You put it on the monitor and do it, and I'll call it as best I can. And I'll always have that philosophy. But I'm a big believer in those guys, Paul. I just think some of them are tremendous in that respect. And Sting's one of those guys that will always go down in my memory as one of my favorite all-time performers, because you can't dislike him.
Yeah.
Can't. If you know him, you can't.
JR 2 Count Kyle, our buddy over at Ad Free Show, says, "Hey JR, were there any reservations from Sting about working with Big Van Vader? His reputation at this time about being stiff was legendary. How did Sting feel, especially as Bill Watts wasn't known to be a diplomatic kind of communicator? Love looking forward to grilling JR every week. I rep the show with my Red Ash JR shirt anytime I can."
I love that. ProWrestlingTees.com, ladies and gents.
I got mine on too, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. No, Sting had no reservations because he had a good rapport with Leon, and Sting knew that Leon could be dangerous. You just get in his head, and Leon has to make an emotional investment too, and Leon's got to want to make it look like he's killing Sting, but he's not. Science of the business. So I've never heard Sting have any. He might. I've heard him laugh about Leon nailing him, or potatoes, but they weren't so many and so much that Sting couldn't work with the guy.
Yeah, never complained about it working with him.
Yeah, hell no.
Yeah. Final question, Brad Stanton, grilling JR. I know it's forever ago, but do you know if Austin was excited to be able to work with Rick Rude? They were tag team here. There you go.
Yes, it was. Steve liked working with the great workers because he knew that it would make him better. Same theory of when let's say a heel is doing the honors, in other words, losing to the baby face. Just the great workers want to work with great workers.
Yeah.
They want to challenge themselves and be good. And there was a time there in his WCW run that Rude was just on fire. And Steve Austin loved that opportunity, the competition, and all those things. So working with Rude was a thrill for just Steve. And I think he always enjoyed working with top guys. So bottom line, top guys.
There you go. Well, Jim, next week, it's all about Triple H's 1997. Hunter Hearst Helmsley has finally been given the chance to run with the ball, and it begins early on in the year, losing the IC title to Rocky Maivita. He's feuding with Goldust, who we just talked about here as Dustin Rhodes. You got the debut of China. He's winning the King of the Ring over Mankind. It's a SummerSlam cage match, forming DX. You got Rick Rude, who we just talked about. The switch from the Blue Blood, Owen Hart, Sergeant Slaughter as he rises in the ranks. Gotta love it, man. Everything Triple H, 1997, buddy.
Yeah, he became a great heel in that year. He became one of the best heels that year. And if you watch his matches, and we'll point some of the stuff out, he really channeled Harley Race a lot. And so you'll see a lot of little nuances there. Harley was a good role model for any heel, including Triple H, who didn't miss a beat. He didn't miss a trick. So that'll be a fun show to talk about. There's a lot of major things that affected the growth of the WWE brand that Triple H influenced that we'll talk about. It was quite the evolution, quite frankly. And I think that was the year that he became, we talk about the Hunter Hearst Helmsley thing and the curtsies and the scraping and bowing and all that stuff, which the character called for. But once he got away from that, he could become himself.
That's right.
And I think the steps that were taken to make Triple H be himself were crucial. And he was ready for it. I mean, he was ready to roll and did a great job as a heel. I thought he was, at one point in time, there was probably no better heel in wrestling than Triple H. That's my take on it.
No,
I call the matches. I mean, I can tell you, I got motivated, excited, and all that good stuff. But he was spot on, man. Spot on. Always appreciate his work. He gets a bad rap because he married the boss's daughter. He always has. He's taken it like a man. He's kept his integrity, and in a place where that may not be widespread, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I feel bad about all the shit's going on there. It's terrible. I don't know what's true or what's not, but it's a tough one to digest, quite frankly.
Sure.
Vince's scenario, I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, he's just kissing ass. He won a job there. No, folks, I'm 70. I made the money. I saved it. I'm good. I don't want to go back to work there. I love working for Tony Khan. And not the stress and all the dissension and all that stuff. I don't have to deal with that anymore. And that's what it had become there for me. You know, I just didn't. It wasn't fun, Paul. And when your job, and I was saying this, and everybody can relate to it and agree, I think, when your job becomes unattainable, unintended, where you just don't enjoy going to work. That's kind of where I found myself. I had never been in that mindset in my whole career. So when you get all that political stuff and the politics and the public company stuff and all that, somewhere along the way, it's like, how much barbecue sauce can a guy eat?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we were. So it'll be a fun to talk about Triple H, because I work very hard in commentary. Somebody says, man, you must really hate Triple H. I know, I can tell by your commentary, you didn't like him at all. Well, that's not true, but thank you for the compliment, because that was the intent, to make him a heel.
Yeah.
And with my words, and even occasionally getting beat up. I think he broke my arm once, and, you know, I got pedigreed. The worst pedigree, we'll talk about this, funny story, but China had these, like these 8-inch heels on. And I think it might have been at Georgia Dome, where we had a tag match, Austin and I versus Triple H in China. And I got wrecked. Cow on ice type situation. So not the prettiest bumps, but it seemed to work, and it got over. It got Triple H over more, and I think that's cool. You know, and did you have a problem doing the jobs? Are you shitting me? You know, I realized early on that I'm in a business that is where the endings are predetermined. I learned a long time ago that what we're doing is largely showbiz. I understand that the only thing really fake are the finishes, because they're predetermined. Other than that, some of that shit hurts.
Yeah.
And if you're not really good at it, it can hurt a lot. And when you're an older fat guy that's out of shape, and they're even doing the most mild-mannered appearance, seemingly appearance, it is what it is, man. But he took good care of me, and Triple H never potated me one time, and he hit me a lot. I got pounded, but I never could complain that he hurt me. And he had plenty of chances he could, taking liberties, but he didn't, out of respect for me and the business.
You're professional.
So I don't give a shit what people think about who he married. You know, when we start legislating marriages and relationships in life, we're out of our lane. Worry about your marriage. Worry about your relationship. And here's the thing about it. You know, he's been married to Stephanie a long time, and they're still married. They have 3 great daughters. They have a wonderful family. So I'd say he comes out as a winner.
Yeah.
I really would in that situation. So it'll be a fun show. We'll have a lot to talk about, and it will kick ass on that one. That's a real good topic.
Looking forward to it, JR. Adfreeshows.com. Check us out over there. The network continues to grow. We just added Click This with Kevin Nash and Sean Oliver. Brand new podcast. Join the family.
What the hell's going on here?
I'm telling you, man, it just keeps growing. Got Mick Foley over there. It's just a big time network, brother, and it's the place to be.
Brother. And Conrad's the booker.
And he's booking it all.
Yeah, he's the head booker there.
Head honcho.
And I got to send him some sauce. You know where I can get some sauce? I do.
Yeah, talk about it.
JR'sBBQ.com never closes.
JR,
That's always open.
I love your sauce. I really love your seasoning because that's been going on everything on my grill this summer.
Well, it's compatible for it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the greatest seasoning in the world. I don't know that. I don't know that. I know that it's really, really good, and it has multiple uses. And so, you know, it was originally made as a just like a dry rub type thing, which is obviously one of the great reasons you buy it. But it's great on fish. It's great on steak, ribs, chicken.
This is the part where you make me hungry, JR. Here you go. It's
all good stuff, man. And I'm really proud to represent that product. It's really, really good seasoning. And, you know, hell, when you got people using it on anything from popcorn to scrambled eggs to fillets to ribs and fish,
meatloaf,
it's a pretty good soldier. Yeah, meatloaf, whatever,
cheeseburgers, whatever you want.
Yeah, it's a good accompaniment, and you can't put too much of it on either. Quite frankly, I mean, it'd be easy for me to say use all you can, cover it up, hide your product. Well, I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say to you, it works really well. It adds flavor to anything you're cooking, and that means anything you're cooking. So, you know, our number one seller is JR's original barbecue sauce that my mother created, and I get so many great compliments on that. I just wish that she and Jan were both here to see the love that fans spread on our product, and it's heartwarming. I get tears in my eyes when I see that sometimes. When people send something on Twitter at JR's BBQ, by the way, for Twitter. So we're really proud of what we're building, and I attribute it all to the fans who have been nice enough to try it and nice enough to rebuy it. Look, I know that some people are trying it because of my name. Curious, they're fans. And I appreciate that. Whatever reason you're buying it is good. A good reason for me if you're buying it. But the repeat business is what's wonderful. And you know, you might be you dearly love the seasoning, but I also know that you know that the chipotle ketchup is good. You also know that the
jalapeno honey mustard.
Oh, that mustard. That's the deal.
I actually need to order myself some more of it now that you're talking about it.
Well, we'll accept your order.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a capitalist. You know, Paul, if you need anything.
I'm going to get me some. Don't worry.
I can handle it. So it's good. So the site's convenient. It's easy to do business with. If we have a disgruntled customer, and we've had some because of shipping issues that I can't control, or my team can't control. We can't control FedEx. We can't control the U.S. mail. And I wish we could ship it all over the world, but some things we can't. Some countries will not allow you to ship liquids or meat, like our beef jerky. We don't hardly ever talk about the beef jerky. I look at the scoreboard and we're out of it. So it's a good thing. So I've always enjoyed talking about it because it's a family affair with involving the two most prominent women in my life. And they're great cooks. And once they tapped into this concept, they ran with it. And I'm so grateful, quite frankly, that that's happened. So maybe you give it a try. Father's Day is it's kind of close, right? Father's Day. It
is. Yeah, Father's Day. Well, Father's Day has happened. That was in June. We're now in July.
Oh, yeah, that's right. God damn.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter, JR. We're still, for those that enjoyed Independence Day, we got Labor Day. It's on the horizon. So start stocking up now so you're ready for that massive Labor Day picnic.
Yeah, there's always birthdays. And how about just gifting somebody because they deserve it?
Yeah.
How about doing a nice thing for somebody because they
deserve it?
Yeah. Yeah. This is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's what they chant after eating your barbecue sauce.
I hope.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that chant. But anyway, we're doing well with it, and I'm grateful as hell. And if you haven't tried it, try it. Just give it a shot.
JR, you still got it, my friend. You still got it. I'm sorry. The group, the chance just got me. But, buddy, we love you. Thank you. JR'sBBQ.com. Check them out. Thank you so much for indulging me for the last 2.5 hours, JR. We said we were going to try to go no more than 2, but when you and I get together, man, we just
rolled along pretty good. I thought we had a good show today, Paul.
I did too. I enjoyed it.
We talked about things that were affiliated with this pay-per-view, but not necessarily
that's right.
Verbatim. We picked out some stuff of why this happened, or here's the reason for this, whatever it may be. So
historical stuff, Nature Boy passing away, lots of stuff happening this time.
As we always do. Excuse me. As we always do.
That's right.
I'd like to think that we show respect for the wrestling business every week. This is not a deal for the dirt. I love the dirt. God damn you, Ross! You son of a bitch!
You egg-sucking dog.
Terry, what'd you say that for? Because you're an egg-sucking dog. My brother Dory told me to be aware of your ass. Don't cross a Texan. I love that guy.
Yep.
Boy, when he's not around, you talk about a loss. God.
Yeah.
So he's still with us, thank God.
He is.
Good old Terry.
Well, buddy,
so anyway, I appreciate it, Paul.
Good luck this week, man. Dynamite we're going to hear you on Rampage. We get you 2 times.
Rampage Friday night. Looking forward to that. Next week is the big soiree in Waterloo.
That's right.
Which 22nd
and 23rd.
Tickets are still available for that. And again, I mentioned this earlier. It's a big statement, but I believe it. It's probably the most fan-friendly gathering that we have in pro wrestling. As far as meet and greets, the diversity of it, the lines are manageable. I've had so much fun at that event over the years.
Go give JR a big wet kiss and hug and say Paulie B sent you. Okay. From Paulie B. There you go.
Can't wait. I love it. I love a nice wet kiss from a stranger.
There you go. Right on the cheek. Just give him a big old wet one right there.
Yeah.
And tell him that's from Paulie B. There you go.
Yeah. I really will appreciate that.
All right, guys. Well, listen, on behalf of the voice of wrestling, he's Jim Ross. This is Paul Bromwell. We hope you enjoyed this show with us this week for another edition of Grilling JR.
See you, everybody. Have fun. Watch Rampage. Rampage. Rampage, 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 Rampage.